Traveling the Vortex.
We've joined the Doctor as he travels the Vortex and landed at episode number 57. The end of all spoilers. For me, aside from Toy Story. I'm Keith.
For now. I'm Sean.
And Sarah Jane. I'm Glenn.
And K9.
And all of Classic Who practically.
Yeah. Well, you guys haven't tried to keep me away from spoilers.
No, we're not keeping you
You spoiled
spoiled
me
free.
on many things
Yes,
on Classic
that's
Who.
right.
So.
Do you realize if Classic Who was the galaxy as explored in Star Trek by the time of The Next Generation, the Classic Who that you've seen equates to the same amount or percentage of the galaxy that's been explored at this point?
In our own reality?
No, in Star Trek. That's how much is
I
still
didn't know.
out there for
In our own reality, you would have had to watch one classic Doctor Who in order for that to be true.
Well, if you're talking
one
about
of the
human-
missing episodes.
One of the missing episodes, so not even the entire story arc.
If you're talking humankind, but we've sent probes and
No.
satellites.
By the time Next Gen rolls around, they comment how much of the galaxy has been explored, and it's like 15%. That's about how much Classic Who you have seen in relation. So if this was an
15%?
I think it's 15, 17, maybe.
Well,
not even
that
high.
could
It was
be, but I'm
somewhere
not
there.
even sure he's seen 15% of Classic.
You don't think so?
No.
With
no,
all
no,
the,
no.
I mean, we've been doing Friday Night Who since
50 years, Sean.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, but you got to subtract.
200 and some episodes, or no, stories.
But he did sit through all 7 of the Daleks. That's got to count.
Yeah,
And
I
the
guess
Silurians.
that is a big chunk. Of, that's a massive chunk.
That's the Delta Quadrant right there. So.
And we made him watch the Dominators, so he's even seen the dark parts of the galaxy.
The seedy underbelly.
The darn quarks. That analogy was way cooler when I formulated it in my head. I'm
Did
not
we
sure.
introduce ourselves? We
Yeah.
did. Okay.
I'm Sean. I just like saying it.
Well.
How was your guys' weeks?
Oh yes, good, very good.
Glenn got
Not
any-
very eventful for me.
Whatever.
I haven't done
The
much
last
this
15
weekend.
minutes of this week have been phenomenal for you, even though it was
The
15
last
yeah, before the last
15%,
2 hours
no.
of... Yeah, the last
The
15%.
last explorable part of the galaxy, as far as it's related to humankind. Yeah, I got a new MacBook Pro.
A little louder, please. I don't think we heard you in the back.
I got a new MacBook Pro. Now, not only am I a sheep, not only am I the king of the sheep, I am sheep emperor in charge. I just made that last title up. There's no really an emperor in charge.
All hail Ming.
I am the Ming of Mac.
Would that make you Dolly?
Dolly the sheep. Bah. Well, I haven't cloned
Thank you.
myself. I haven't
Thank you. I
cloned myself
appreciate
yet. Yes, I did get it,
Somebody
Sean.
got
Good.
it. Keith blank stares
Well
over here
done.
on the right side of the room.
I was trying to think of Flash Gordon characters named Dolly, and I'm like, coming up with anything.
He was still stuck on Ming.
Oh, hey, before we get there, by the way, if anybody is not following them, I highly recommend it. Movie Boozers, is that who it is on Twitter? Now that I've brought this up, I probably should have had this pulled up to look.
It's nothing like us not to prepare.
Yeah,
Come on.
I start now. It's a movie review site, and they rank all their films reviews with beer, but it's backwards. If a film only gets 1 beer, that's because it's a very good film, and you don't need as many to get
So
through
you need more beer to get through it.
The
It's
more
a-
beer,
That's clever.
That
worse
is
one.
clever. I
I
like
think
that.
it's a lot of fun.
Look that
now,
up, because I'd like to put that in the notes.
Whoever just did it reviewed Flash Gordon, and he said you'd need a 6-pack.
Oh,
So I went and clicked on his little review and read through his comments, and wow, did he tear it? Now, you can know me. Flash
I'm
Gordon is
sorry,
an absolute piece
Well,
of junk.
it's a guilty
but
pleasure.
it's such a guilty pleasure for me. And all the things that he complained about were things that I was just...
Me too.
And I got very frustrated. So it was.
You took all the fun out of it.
It was a grr
So maybe
moment.
we shouldn't.
No, I like the
okay.
website a lot. I just don't agree with him at all on Flash Gordon, even though he's technically right. But
Speaking of Twitter, Sarah joined
You just
Twitter
don't like
this
to
week.
agree.
I
Oh,
don't
yeah,
like to agree.
Yeah. So what is? Can we
Sarah's
say
handle.
Sarah's handle?
I'm going to say it anyways. Sarah Who Knits.
Spell it out.
Spelled proper. S-H-A...
oh, you had to think about it.
S-A-R-A-H-W-H-O-K-N-I-T-S.
And not only is she a Sarah who knits, but she also knits who stuff. So it's Sarah who knits.
knits.
I love it.
Isn't that
That's so
clever?
cool.
It came to me.
How-
The flash of
I was-
brilliance
did
Friday.
it come to you, or was it something you kind of had to think about?
No,
So
I
she didn't
stopped.
say, "I'm signing up for Twitter and I need a screen name," and you thought about it for a while.
She said, I'm going to sign up for Twitter. Or I'm thinking about signing up for Twitter, but I don't know what my handle would be. And I said, okay, I'll think on it. But it was kind of
Didn't
way
even
back
have
in
to,
the
like,
back of my
think on it
mind.
much once it
just,
came forward.
Yeah, it just jumped straight forward. And
Terrific. I love
thought
it. That's
of
a fantastic handle.
So everyone follow Sarah.
At Sarah Who Knits.
With Sarah with an H.
Yes. Proper spelling of Sarah, correct?
Yes.
It's like the proper spelling of Glenn is 2 N's.
And the proper spelling of Sean is A-U-N.
It's S-E-A-N, but
No, it isn't. That's Scene.
depends on where you're at.
Scene Connery.
Scene
Made a lot of
Connery.
movies.
Good old Scene.
It's at Movie Boozer. M-O-V-I-E-B-O-O-Z-E-R.
At Movie Boozer.
At Movie Boozer on Twitter.
All right.
And they've got a website, so you can check them out. But yeah, a lot of fun.
Sean, what'd you do this weekend? Any exciting things this week?
I helped you set up your new MacBook.
You did, silently.
No, I've been doing a lot of homework. I got stuck with it as I. We got stuck with. I have a speech class for school, taking public speaking, and yeah, it's online. And they gave us a fill in the blank speech where they had everything pre-prepared, and it was just, fill in your name here. Well, I don't want to call anybody out, but I didn't think it was particularly well written fill in the blank speech, and there's a lot of every 5 seconds. Sean Collins would like to talk to you about Sean Collins, and I mean it's strangely put together. And so I went and looked at a bunch of the videos online, and all of my classmates are standing in front of blank walls with paper delivering their speech, and I kind of got rebellious and decided I'm not going to do that because you can't make me do that. You're going to make me read this. I'm going to do it my way. So with Keith's help, we set up a little scenario, and I sat down and had my smoking jacket and an ascot and wore his fez, and we put on the fake video fireplace on the TV and did it that way. I was
Very
like
clever.
I was
I
like
liked
the Don Equus guy.
That's cool.
So
That's cool.
We tore up the apartment getting
oh yeah, resetting. I know how Dave feels now when we
Lighting
do
it.
short films because it was just that 1 minute and a half thing, and all of a sudden it was like, holy cow!
Speaking of Dave, I've got to say, the MacBook is most in part thanks to Dave. In case he ever listens to this, I don't think he does listen to our show.
Credit where credit's
but credit
due.
where credit's due. I've got a new job with him, and this was actually it's a gift, but it's part of a project that I'm working on for him. So it's I need to give credit to Dave. Dave's who does our phenomenal director and editor, and does a lot of does all the films that we submit.
Yeah.
So I got to give him credit for the MacBook.
So what you're saying is that
I didn't mean to segue, but you reminded me of that. as you
Dave has
said it.
purchased this piece of equipment for work, and you are using it for podcast.
Actually, he purchased this, and that my intention when I asked him to requisition this for me, I put in a work order, and thinking it would just be intended for that it would be owned by Berkeley Square, and it was for
You'd
work
have to check it out
purposes.
on weekends or something.
And well, not even that, but no, he said, "Here you go. It's a gift. It's yours. It's part of my salary package, but
Right.
it is mine, and he actually started setting the thing up for me. I had some help from you when we came over, and you got me on. You helped me find things that I didn't know how. I'm
Green button, Glenn.
very Mac green here, and I've done very little on Macs with the exception of what we've done on Sean's as far as recording and stuff. So anyway, I will send it back to your side of the table. I didn't mean to tilt
That
the
was the
scale
end of
back
that
my
story.
way.
I did homework all week. So.
But I watched this video you're talking about, and it was very cleverly done, and I was very impressed. That
That's
you came up
TARDIS
with
is in the
something
background.
Like that. It was
Our cardboard
it was
TARDIS.
very neat. It's very cool. Clever. Oh, there's my flash drive.
Noisy Cricket. Oh, I didn't name it.
Oh,
I thought you
shit.
did.
I'll
Well,
do
it
it.
wouldn't let me do it because I was transferring to it at the
I'll
time.
name it Noisy Cricket. I like that. That's good, Noisy Cricket, because it's little teeny tiny. You can't see it at home, but it's
Yeah.
a little tiny 8 gig flash drive.
It's not even 2 inches long.
No, it's really not.
I thought we agreed not to talk about the size of people's flash drives on the podcast.
Keith, what did you do this weekend or this week? for
Sarah
that
and
matter?
I went to Manhattan and
That's
scoped
right.
out the Hastings there, since the one in Topeka closed.
Which we sort of assumed got part of at least some of the stock that Topeka.
I don't know.
stores.
It had some cool, unseen, and older toys. A couple of play sets I hadn't seen, including a Crash set 11th Doctor, where it's him in the Raggedy Doctor outfit.
You hadn't seen that?
I hadn't
before?
seen that one.
Really?
I'd seen the one with David Tennant and Matt Smith, and with Matt Smith in the Raggedy Doctor set,
But not the solo one.
but not just all Matt
Right,
Smith.
Gotcha.
And you didn't come home with it.
I
I
was
haven't-
quite surprised that he said that he saw all this great swag there, but he didn't come. Well, that's not really.
I saw a lot of
He's
great
got-
swag.
he's got every
It's
version
pretty to
of
look
Matt's-
at.
Yeah,
He's
It's
got every
expensive.
version of Matt
It is
Smith's
expensive.
action
A lot of
figure
the
up there at this
ones
point, except the
they
Raggedy Man.
had.
that's true.
They had the Sea Devil with the mesh.
Which
I actually got to see that in person.
You should have bought that in celebration of
Which-
something that Sean's going to talk about later.
If it weren't $40, I probably would have.
Yeah, they're
For one
expensive.
figure?
They are
Well,
expensive.
no, there's two.
There's two in
it's
there.
Pertwee and
Yeah,
the Sea
it's a
Devil.
duel.
That's
so it's
20 bucks a
16
figure.
it's-
Yeah.
Well, they're 16 separate. So, but they're adding
It's not
that
an
like
Unleashed.
they're
it's
adding
a-
that $5.
it's an
I
action
know. It's
Yeah,
ridiculous.
yeah,
Wow.
And they had some
Shame
other
on you,
cool-
Hastings.
Yeah, it's
They
the
had some other
markup
really
there is
cool
terrible.
sets. They had a
That's
couple
why
of-
That's why we say go to the Amazon.com store. Actually, go to our Amazon store
Yes.
and order things from there.
'Cause I
Is it
even
time
didn't-
for a plug?
No,
Can
plug
we
it
do
away.
a plug?
Plug it
I
away.
even didn't bring home any DVDs
I'm-
because they weren't cheap.
I'm actually interrupting Keith to plug our store. So plug away, Sean.
Do you need Doctor Who stuff? Of course you do. We all do. And that's why, if you're a Vortex fan, you should go to www.travelingthevortex.com and look over on the small right-hand side in tiny little print, which we need to talk to our IT department about.
No, it's been like that for a year now.
It's a link that says Amazon Store. And on the Amazon Store, you can find all kinds of goodies, which still needs to be updated, Glenn.
I updated a couple weeks ago. Are they not showing up?
I think it's the same stuff.
Oh, I'll double
Double
check
check
because
the
I did. I
DVDs.
went and added a whole bunch of stuff. Okay.
But including Doctor Who DVDs, Doctor Who books, Doctor Who action figures and toys and all kinds of things. And, of course, any purchases that you make. It's through Amazon. It's a real deal. But any purchases that you make, a portion of the proceeds does come back to support our podcast. And we thank you.
Now back to Keith's weekend.
They did have,
We interrupted for the benefit of.
which I am absolutely okay with. They
Yeah,
had,
he's all, you can interrupt me all you want if it brings money to the podcast.
They did have the Doctor Who character building TARDIS.
Oh, did they the play set?
Yeah.
That's
How much was that?
Yeah, you have that, right?
Well, Billy has.
Billy has it.
Billy got it. It was 20.
You have it.
Let's see, $14.95 on
You
Amazon.
have
Yeah,
it through
see.
Billy. It's just like I buy Star Wars stuff for my kids, and it's really because it's mine too.
Yeah.
They did have the Keeper of Kraken box set, which had the Master. There were box sets of stuff I hadn't seen before and episodes I hadn't seen before. So
I'm sorry,
was
I don't
kind
mean to
of,
interrupt you again. I
Yes,
just,
you do.
I'm done.
I just happened
They also had a.
I'm done.
They also had a Perry action
I'm not even going to
figure
try anymore.
that I hadn't seen before.
Harry Sullivan is an idiot?
Perry.
Oh, Perry.
Perry.
How have you not seen any of these action figures?
Yeah,
This is
was
fairly
it the
new.
Perry with Syl?
No,
Oh, see,
Oh,
that one's been at our Hastings.
I've
for a
seen
while.
that
Yeah,
one.
I thought you
Okay.
had.
this is a different one. This is
Oh,
Perry
okay.
with
Invading suit?
Caves of Adrazani.
Ooh,
It's got the guy in the black suit. Guy.
yeah. Can't remember. his
Shara's
name off the top of my head.
Jack.
Yeah,
Yeah, that guy.
That's the guy.
And other cool ones.
I just happened to pull up Get Glue on our site because I was going to check in and say I'm now recording, and I haven't been on Get Glue to our site in a while. There's a link here from Dan G. He says, explaining to the wife 3-2-1 dip. We're going to try it. Thanks for the recipe.
Great.
Excellent.
It just cracked me up. I'm sorry. Informative Doctor Who and food. We should be Dr. Food.
Do you know they have a Brain of Morbius action figure?
Of Morbius?
Of Morbius.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know.
That was one of those that I thought seriously about when I saw it, and I was like, no.
Anyway, yeah.
Well,
I
Sean's birthday's only a few short
too bad
weeks
it's
away,
out of
months
stock
away.
on the
month
Hastings
away.
website. Maybe if we see it at Planet Comic Con.
Oh, there you go.
Here's our
it's
Planet.
after his birthday.
Oh, yeah, we didn't talk
Yeah,
about
but it would
that.
be a post birthday gift to him.
That's true.
Which is what I'm contemplating doing, buying you something from Planet Comic Con for your
Oh,
birthday.
there you go. There you go.
If you'd like to send me a gift, any of you out there, I could definitely use money for galley.
Planet
I'll put it
Comic
to good
Con
use.
announced their big guest this
I
year.
guess
which
that's
is
going to be our next news, huh?
the
We forgot to talk about it.
yeah.
Did you know? Surely you know.
Oh
You
yeah,
told
I,
me.
I
know.
told
You
him
told
as
me
soon
at
as I
work or something.
I told
I
him.
walked
You probably
into work
told him
and
before you told me.
Yeah, I
probably.
think I knew
Well, no,
before you
because
did.
Sarah told you.
Oh, that's right.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Yeah. Which I texted to Clontarf, so I think I technically told you first. But
You assume I read your texts.
oh, that's true. Billy D. Williams is going to be in Kansas City. for
Billy D.
Planet Comic Con.
Yay!
So-
Billy D, love you.
If I'm so excited about this.
If you're in the Kansas City area, you want to go
Absolutely.
to Planet Comic Con. definitely join us. Ask for Traveling the Vortex.
Look
We're gonna
for
be there.
me.
We don't have a table yet this year.
I
We
will-
talked about the possibility of doing that this year. Still might be down the road, but we're.
That'd be a fun
I
side
looked
trip.
into it.
To just set up a table and just record
absolutely.
there.
Oh, it'd be
That'd
fantastic.
be a lot of fun.
I did look into it. It's quite expensive to set
Oh,
up
it's
a
like
table.
$700 for the weekend.
That's why we're looking at that down the road.
Long down the road.
That's why we're plugging the website early. or
If
the
you'd like
Amazon
to support
store.
us during the PlanetCon and having a table, buy something from the Amazon store.
I will be. We're going on Saturday, and I will be dressed as the 11th Doctor. So
You made a mess of yourself.
I'm just a mess.
You look like you've been drywalling.
It's my psoriasis. Okay. Thanks for pointing
I'm
that
not
out.
even sure if we were going there, but
wasn't.
okay.
You got crackers all over you.
That's what it was. A cracker
That's
on
what
my
was on
toe.
your sleeve was crackers.
How
You
did that
really
get on
didn't
my
have to go
shoulder?
to the psoriasis.
God, maybe it was me because I was eating crackers. Maybe I projected them over to you. I don't know. I'm in my beard.
Wow.
How cool would it
That's
be?
our other podcast. Aiding you with dry skin. I don't know what that would be called, but anyway.
How cool would it be if we could get Billy D to do a plug?
Even though he hasn't done anything.
That's just
Doctor
it.
Who.
We talked about
I
that.
don't
We got to
care.
get him to do a bumper. He's not really related, unless as Keith pointed out, we're going to do our research before
I did
we
do
go,
my
so
research
that I'm not
according
standing there in
to-
line going, "Why does this sound familiar?" Oh,
Did you know Billy D. Williams was in episode number 27?
I did do my research according to
we could do
IMDb.
6 degrees of Billy D. Williams. Who was in? Oh, Billy D. Who was in Star Wars: Empire Strikes Back with Jeremy Bullock? Who was in?
Who was in the time war? That counts.
I don't think it counts. Anyway,
I don't care. We got to get him to do it.
Getting a bumper.
Just imagine the show open. You're listening to Traveling the Vortex. This is Billy D. Williams.
Well, that was like the best Billy D. Williams impression. That was awesome, Sean.
Would you like a Colt 45?
That was great.
I watch a lot of Robot Chicken.
Who he is actually guest
Yeah,
voiced
well,
on.
yeah,
As
It is.
himself
Yeah,
and
as
as
himself.
Lando.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
So do you have him sign something from Empire, obviously?
I'm going to.
Or do you go Batman? Mel asked me, she says, what has he been in? I'm like, well, he's Lando. But he's also the original Harvey Dent.
Yeah, that's a tough call
He
because
has
that's
such a small
great-
role in Batman.
He does,
But it was so
it's such
good.
it's such an iconic part.
I really, I mean, don't get me wrong, I enjoy Tommy Lee Jones. I didn't necessarily enjoy Tommy Lee Jones in Batman Forever, but I really would have liked to have seen what Two-Face would have been had they gone with Billy D. Williams and continue with that.
Well,
I think it would have been really cool.
when he was Harvey Dent in Batman, I went, hey, they're setting up Harvey Two-Face.
Yeah.
And
Unfortunately not.
Stupid movie studios, stupid Joel Schumacher. Okay, I'm done.
That's a whole other podcast right there. We love you, Billy D. We're going to come see
Yes,
you.
we
That's
do.
traveling
We
the
absolutely
Batverse.
do. Other bit of news. Speaking of, no, we weren't. It is a certain person's birthday today.
Yes, it is.
It just turned over midnight here on Monday morning, and that makes it whose birthday, Sean?
Daphne Ashbrook.
Happy birthday, Daphne! I know she listens
Happy
to the
birthday.
show.
Yes.
So.
Well, she's friends of both of ours on Twitter, isn't she?
Is she? I don't
Or
think
not on Twitter.
on Facebook. Yes, we are Facebook friends with her.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Maybe I'd
we're
have to
special.
search her down and send a request.
I love Daphne.
We've been friends with Daphne for a while.
You know who? Yeah, she's going to be a galley
Yes, she is going to be a galley.
with
Paul McGann,
and
Eric Roberts,
The Asian,
the Asian
child.
child. We gotta remember the guy's name. We
I
really
feel
ought to write
bad.
that down.
He will forever be the Asian child. I'll
Eric-
walk up to him in line and point, the Asian child! And
Eric
he'll go,
Roberts' wife.
Eric Roberts' wife, Elisa?
I think that sounds right.
Elsa?
Eric Roberts' wife.
Eric Roberts' wife.
And Badger.
Badger. And
Old Badger.
Badger. I don't think that works.
Mark Shepard's dad is officially, from this day forward, known as Old Badger. He's like a Disney character.
Yeah, I thought the same thing. Or Narnia.
You never saw that episode of Firefly? Where they
Badger.
jumped 100 years in the future and everyone's all grizzly and old and walking around with walkers.
That never happened.
Badger
on
the
that show.
greater, Badger the lesser. All right, that's it. That's the big lineup, though, of actors.
Isn't Vincent going to be there?
Yeah,
Oh, Vincent's
and
gonna be
Vincent
there.
and Ian and Victoria
Ian
and,
Victoria.
and Jamie. And actually, I don't know if Jamie's still coming or not. I
No,
think-
Jamie's
I
out.
think
That's
Jamie
why
got-
He's going to be someplace else.
That's
He's gonna
why
be in
little
Illinois.
Emily's coming.
little Emily and
Young Emily Pond, excuse me.
Emilia.
young Amelia.
Amelia
Pond.
Pond, yes.
And
Not even young Emily. Young Amy.
Yeah, where was I getting Emily from?
No,
Wow.
I was looking at you like,
Oh my
I know
God.
what you're
Young
talking
Emily?
about.
What the heck are you? You're supposed to smack me upside the head and say,
And
wrong. Was
Sylvester McCoy.
No.
Yes.
Have they confirmed it?
No.
No. Sean has confirmed it in his head. In his
I'm-
fantasy.
I'm honestly a little glad I'm not going to see the devastation on his face
Oh,
when
I
Sylvester
know.
McCoy
No
doesn't
kidding.
show up.
Sylvester, right up until like the last days. Sylvester come yet? Sylvester here yet?
Where's Sylvester?
He's coming.
And then he'll be so devastated. It'll be the whole flight back. He'll just be
You realize
sobbing.
at this point that no, I'm not even going to say that because it's like the Great Pumpkin. I can't say that word. When he comes, I will. You just watch.
I
I
will-
hope we're eating our words.
Sylvester,
I
I,
really
am
do.
sitting in
Wrong.
my pumpkin patch, believing in you. You're going to come to Galley.
And how'd that turn out for Linus?
He said the word.
Moving right
Sylvester
along.
McCoy flies through the air and brings toys to all the good children of the world.
Moving right along.
Put loose and fancy free.
Our next bit of audio news is the audio. I was looking at my
You going there
my
first?
webpage. The BBC held their first audio drama awards, hosted or announced, whichever. This says announced by David Tennant,
Well, it's an audio award.
Yeah.
and he won Best Actor in an Audio Drama for Kafka the Musical by Murray Gold.
Really?
Really?
That's what this says,
Kafka
according to
the-
bbc.co.uk. Kafka the Musical by Murray Gold. So congratulations. He is a multi-award winner.
On Kafka the musical. Okay.
I want to search this out now because
I want to
sounds-
too. I'm curious now.
And Murray Gold. How can you go wrong? You know, at least
Well,
the
no,
music's
yeah,
going to be
terrific. Yeah. Did Murray pick up any awards?
good.
There we are.
He
We
was
didn't do our
associated.
research.
He was associated in some way, shape, or form with Kafka the musical.
Apparently so. Kafka. Okay.
Hansel. Hansel.
Hans.
He did not pick up any
Hans?
awards.
Aw. Well, we love you, Murray Gold.
We do love you, Murray.
But it's still a great indicator that I think part of the best actor is for the roles is the writing for it.
Sure.
So
Oh, yeah.
I think
And
every
it's-
actor nomination it's also a writing
And
nomination.
it's for Kafka.
the musical.
Sorry. Anyway,
Moving right along.
in other
Who else
news,
picked up some awards?
there were two people that picked up awards this week at the National Television Awards.
Do we know them?
I think we do. It's a couple of little-known names, Matt Smith and Karen Gillan. And
Vaguely familiar.
yeah, they both picked up awards for Best Actor and Best Female Actor in a Drama. Well, each one of them got one. Matt Smith got Best Actor.
Oh,
Yeah, it wasn't a joint award.
Well, yeah,
They each
okay.
got an award.
Each-
And
that's good.
we will, I'm not going to list off the names of
Yay!
people that Matt beat out for this, with the exception of maybe John Barrowman,
Yay!
which rightfully so. Although
absolutely.
Barrowman did a fantastic
Barrowman is a
job.
great
Absolutely,
actor. He's a
It,
Great
it
actor,
was
and
certainly
and realistically, he did.
He did.
And you can't say that because you haven't finished it.
Deserving
Yeah,
of the
you-
well, from what I've seen of it, deserving of the nomination. Absolutely. On the other end of the spectrum, Karen beat out Eve Miles for her role in Torchwood as well, and again rightfully nominated, but rightfully the award went
The right person.
to the right person. So, anyway, so they both picked up their awards at the National Television Awards in the UK. And there was a little bit of a, just to add to the speculation that we've been bantering about for the last, 2 months.
Oh God, do we have to go there?
We
again?
added more fuel to the fire. I'm going to read this from Doctor Who News.net.
Wait, he does.
He does.
What?
He quoted himself.
He did quote himself. You're right.
There's nothing new to this. But
It
go
goes.
ahead.
It says here, speaking after receiving his award, Matt Smith gave some clue to the future, telling Radio Times that he has one more year of Doctor Who, and then he's going to try his luck in Hollywood. Here we go again.
Dun-dun-dun.
Same thing we heard.
Although
what,
he
6
later
months
told
ago?
the BBC Entertainment News team that he has no plans to leave Doctor Who. Well, you don't tell your bosses you're
Yeah,
leaving.
it's like the worst kept secret in the world now.
Exactly, but
I am
you don't
totally
tell
going
the
to
boss.
Hollywood. Oh, hi, boss. No, I
No,
don't have any
I'm not
plans to go
going anywhere.
Yeah.
No, I don't know what you're talking about.
But of course, he could still go to Hollywood and come back to do more Who.
You think I'm delusional?
I know. Sylvester McCoy turning up in Cali is much more likely than what.
Benedict Cumberbatch is over in Hollywood doing Warhorse and Star Trek 2, and he's coming back and doing Sherlock.
Oh my
Maybe.
gosh. Yeah, maybe.
Did they shoot Sherlock back to back?
They did. Yeah.
They did?
Yeah, it was all shot
There's no
together.
season 3, though.
No,
Not
I mean
yet.
1 and 2.
It hasn't been
Oh, 1
announced.
and 2?
Yeah.
They were?
No, they didn't shoot
Did-
season
no,
two.
they-
Yeah,
those
so
were
he went to...
Oh, you're saying he went and came back and
Yeah.
did? Yeah,
I can't
he's right.
explain why he can't come back because he hasn't watched it yet.
Yeah, well, I know.
No,
that.
no, I'm just saying...
I know we think
I'm
he's
saying
dead.
that he's
I already saw the
I'm saying in between
spoilers.
season 1
I
and
know
2.
it's my
Sorry,
fault
everybody.
for not watching yet. I got to get on the internet. Okay.
In between season 1 and 2, he went to America, shot Warhorse, and came back to do Sherlock.
Well, it's because they knew they were doing a season 2.
People can't see you do this.
That's the same premise.
Sherlock doesn't regenerate. The Doctor does.
Well, yes, but he still could come back.
Yeah. Okay. You want to hear my take on this?
I
We were discussing
fully
this.
believe...
Him this week, not me. Yes.
This is why Matt Smith will not return to Doctor Who. Okay. Moffat is a sly fox, and I've got him figured out. You ready for this? Going to blow your mind. After the comments that Moffat made about anniversary special and why think singular, we could have more than one episode as a special, it started clicking and dinking. He immediately followed that with 14 episodes, and one of those is a Christmas special. All right, so we throw the Christmas special out because it's Christmas. 13 episodes
In 2012.
in 2012, right?
No.
Well, not fully 2012, but...
Well,
but the next season.
But the next
season.
All right.
End quote.
Gearing up for the 50th anniversary, all right? Multi-Doctor stories. All of them.
Oh,
Every
that was a mind blowing. I
every
don't know that that's
episode.
true. That it
Although-
would be every episode. I see some.
every episode
The
with a different
problem
doctor.
is the last two...
Well, the problem would be the first two.
Well, no, I mean the last two episodes.
no,
we
no,
go
last
to
2 episodes.
11.
Yeah.
Because then...
Actually, it's 3.
No, because you throw out the Christmas special.
No, 13 episodes.
Just listen. You throw out the Christmas
3.
special, that drops it down to 13. We've got 11 doctors, so that's 2 episodes left. You do a 2-part finale.
It's 3. Is the 11th Doctor going to co-star with himself?
Yes.
Okay.
He's already done that. That's not a big
It's
deal.
not a multi...
Let him talk.
Go ahead.
You do a 2-part finale with all of the doctors and the big multi ba 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 before the fall of the 11th, and we get the 12th Doctor. The regeneration happens. Moffat, I
Rebuttal.
figured you out.
No, I like the idea.
Oh, I love the idea. It's not going to happen, but I love the idea.
I think the finale... or
I think that's less likely than Matt Smith coming back.
man can still dream. I
Go large or go home.
Yeah.
I guess
I'm glad I'm the only grounded one here at this podcast.
I guess I should qualify my hopes by the fact that, okay, he's got one more year. And I'm not counting the 50th anniversary stuff in that year. That he could go to Hollywood, do his thing, come back for the 50th anniversary episodes for his regeneration.
Here's the thing is...
and that'd be good. That's how I picture it in my head.
Here's the thing, though. When he says, I got one more year of Doctor Who, they've already started shooting this Series 7.
Have they?
Yes.
No, technically not until...
Or they're
February.
starting, but they're doing pre-production, I guess I should say. So they're already shooting that. He's not talking about, I have this year. This one he's already signed up for. This one he's already ready.
Oh, so that means
That's
that's one
why
more
I
year
think
past this one.
that's what I'm saying. But this is 12-13. I think he still anticipates doing 13-14, 2013, 2014.
Yeah.
But I really think, I can't find the source for this, but there also came out this week was the idea that that somebody had floated the mention that he would probably regenerate in that anniversary year. And I'm just going to go with this. This may be my delusional need for something to happen. I would love to see him regenerate on the anniversary.
Me too.
So that would put you,
I think
if
that would
you
be.
continue the fall-winter schedule as we're going to establish next year, that would put you smack dab in the middle of the winter part of that. And I think that that's what will happen, and I think that's what's going to happen.
So then we get but they would do specials instead of a full season.
No, see, I don't know that that's going to be the case because
would
they
they
are
do a
doing
half
specials.
season
But I think the
of-
specials, you were talking about doing a full anniversary year. Like,
spreading it out.
So I think spring is where we'll see the specials, and I think we'll see one big special on the anniversary date.
And then that will springboard
being epic.
into the next season.
Not even springboard. I don't even think they have
the
to
next
do
Doctor.
that, but maybe they could. I don't know. I'm not sure. But anyway, so
I just can't imagine them doing.
regardless
a
of
season
that, Matt
and
Smith is
regenerate
almost all
midway
but confirmed that he's coming back for one more year, and then he's leaving to Hollywood. So, even though he's not telling his boss yet.
through. Unless he changes his mind.
Anyway, a couple more things are pale in comparison now to the big news that we announced. We didn't do these in the right order, guys. The Daemons, as Sean says, and Carnival of Monsters Special Edition have been slated for release on DVD, which we're excited about, especially Carnival Monsters, because I think that's a
We all
classic
that's
love
just
of
a
ours.
love
Yeah,
of that
I
one.
like that one.
I'll probably pick that one up.
And then Keith has a little bit of news about the PS3 update.
The Supermassive Games, I believe, is in that game company.
Sure.
I'm doing a Google search, waiting for the page to load.
Didn't you have all these things ready before?
I forgot
Why
to
did
pull
we
it
do a
up.
pre-meeting? Anyway?
Supermassive Games, indeed, has released a new trailer for Doctor Who: The Eternity Clock, and it includes some gameplay footage, as well as
Which is very rare for a trailer, especially this early out.
Well,
you rarely ever see gameplay
it's still
video in a
set to
trailer.
launch early 2012.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, so
So
it's probably only a few months away.
Yeah, I believe so too.
But still, it's still very rare to see gameplay video in a trailer. So
Yeah.
that's exciting. news.
And you see, and it kind of goes through the three main monsters or creatures or adversaries you will encounter in the game, which it wouldn't surprise me if there was a whole lot of peppered small cameos of villains also. The three include the Silence.
Spoilers.
Okay, if you watch the trailer, you're going to see it.
Well, I'm just saying nobody's watched the trailer yet, though. So
I shared it on
they're-
Facebook up to Wazoo.
Well, no.
and-
Here's the thing. They come to us for their news, so nobody
they
does
don't.
anything. No, I know. I'm just kidding.
Regardless, it's
Go ahead.
there's the Silence, which looks really good with the animation they have. The Daleks, which look like Daleks, and the Cybermen.
Really? There's wow.
And
It's just like the trifecta.
Silurians.
Wow.
4, actually. I just remembered the 4th
No,
one.
the Silurians aren't really adversaries.
Well,
No, I'm just
they
kidding.
look like they're going to be adversaries in this.
They certainly are.
So
Do they
we
look
need-
like
we
the
should
new
have done a
form?
companion archive.
Yeah, we should have. Nah, they're adversaries. Anyway,
And I did share it on the Traveling the Vortex Facebook page, so you can go there and watch it, and that way Glenn knows if he wants to go pull it for the show notes.
we will. We'll have a link in the show notes as well. So I've written it down in my notes.
It looks very cool. I'm very excited.
Moving right along.
Oh, this is saying March 2012.
Anything else?
That's it.
March 2012. We can't get excited because exclusive. Well,
He
coming
has
over here.
access,
We're coming over
Mark.
here and I'm coming over here and playing it. I guarantee, because you're buying it day and date.
Oh yeah. I'm
plan
still
on
hoping
bad
that
mouthing it the entire time, just because it's on a PlayStation 3.
I'm
It
kind
could be the most phenomenal game ever. It could hail, everything else.
You'll be
hails
standing there
comparison.
with your what's the is it Motion? PlayStation
The Move.
Motion? The Move. PlayStation Move. Doing the sonic screwdriver stuff, going, this is exactly what this should have been. But yeah, this game stinks.
It could be the rebirth of Monopoly, and I'd be like, no.
it won't surprise me if it eventually goes non-exclusive.
Oh, I especially if it does well. Yeah. Absolutely.
There's very little exclusivity in video games these days.
Moving right along.
Is that all our news?
I think that's it.
Keeper of the list over
Yeah,
there.
because I had Planet Comic Con last that I added late, and we talked about that already. So
Excellent.
Billy D. Sorry.
Billy D. Our first bit of feedback comes from New Phil.
New Phil.
New Phil.
Hope you don't mind Phil M. That's your new nickname, New Phil. Comment question. Hello from the UK. I've been listening to you all for a few months, and I've just now few months now and have very much enjoyed your podcast as I struggle to work and home again in Birmingham, famous for Ozzy Osbourne, J.R.R. Tolkien, Arthur Darvill, and the Industrial Revolution, basically.
Basically.
Why don't you just take credit for all that there, Phil? Why don't you leave something to... Well, he's not from Liverpool. I mean,
Yeah.
we've still got the Beatles, for Pete's sake. But
And Tom Baker.
Tom Baker.
Like you're from Liverpool?
Did I ever tell you that? I'm totally from Liverpool.
You're from Hawaii.
That's close.
Closer than Kansas.
No, it's not. No. Look at a globe, Keith.
You should go back to school.
I was trying to give him help.
Your reply is, I hated teaching.
Phil goes on to read.
A few podcasts ago, well, quite a few now, time flies when you're responsible for 1-year-old twins and the English department for a secondary school.
Ooh.
You asked
The twins are responsible for them?
No, when you're responsible.
when you're responsible for 1-year-old twins and
not that the twins are not responsible for the
Just clarifying.
school. Okay.
Sorry, Phil, go ahead.
you asked if there might be anyone going to the official Doctor Who convention in Cardiff, March 2012. Oh, yeah, that's the same release as the game. Who could report for you?
Keith, there's degrees of importance in that statement. The game? Not so much.
Way down here.
Who could report for you? Well, I'm lucky enough to be going on the Saturday and have now booked my TARDIS tour for the Sunday. So if nobody else is offered, then I will be happy to send you email.
Yay!
Yay!
Photos,
Yay!
audio,
Yay!
whatever I can manage from the event.
Absolutely.
Let me know if you think I can contribute to your August podcast.
August? Why did you read it that way?
Is it August?
It is August.
It's August.
August?
August. Your August podcast.
It's not going to be our podcast for the month of August.
It is. It's August.
That's what he said.
Oh. Just go on. I'm teasing.
Thank you for many entertaining
It's not even
discussions.
capitalized. Of course it's not August.
Oh, I know. It threw me off. I've only seen that word
Did you
referred
see
to
as
the
he
month.
looked at me? Is it August?
It's because he asked me earlier what it meant. And
I've only seen that referred to the
I
month.
read it, and he was like, August.
I didn't realize he'd gone there.
Now you're
already.
calling me out. He's looking
I'm
at me
sorry.
like, I thought you said it was pronounced this way.
Sorry, Phil. We're having fun at the expense here. Yes.
We're not
You
used
can't-
to your fancy language.
You can't use them big words around us.
Phil, we would love for your contributions.
Yeah, absolutely.
Here's my challenge to you, Phil. I want bumpers from Stephen Moffat, Matt Smith. Who else is going to be there?
I don't know. One of those people going to be there?
Yeah,
this is the big card.
the big one.
This is the official Doctor
Yeah, we
Who.
want Matt Smith,
Matt Smith and Stephen
Karen
Moffat.
Gillan,
Karen Gillan. I can't.
Arthur
remember.
Darvill.
I don't. Whoever
Stephen
is
Moffat.
confirmed.
Yeah, we want
them all.
everything. We want what you can get us. We'll post photos on the website. We'll take audio from you. We'll take email. We'll take
We'll
whatever we
release
can
short
get.
stops along
We
the way.
will
if
call
wanna
you
record
our
stuff.
correspondent in Cardiff, for crying out loud.
Ooh.
So
How cool would that be?
that's awesome. Phil, I'm very excited that you're getting to go to that. That's
I'm so
huge
jealous.
for Doctor Who
Yeah,
fans.
I'm
that's
jealous. I'm going to Gala and I'm jealous.
Yeah, well, that's incredible. So congratulations
Phil,
on that.
I
That's
want
awesome.
the windshield wiper fluid container from the TARDIS when you go on the tour. Just make sure nobody's looking and just reach out and snag it and run.
Phil, don't get arrested on behalf of Charlie.
Arthur Darvill's going to be there too.
That's what I said. I said Arthur.
He said
Darvill.
Arthur.
I didn't think you did. You said Karen Gillian and whoever
It's
else.
on.
He said
It's
Arthur.
on.
Darvill.
It's recorded audio. I've got proof.
Anyway, Phil,
Phil, and thanks for listening.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. That's
Yes,
awesome.
welcome to the show.
and I'm sorry that you have a long commute from Birmingham, Alabama, all the way into wherever you're from.
Cardiff.
Birmingham.
He takes the channel, probably.
Yeah.
You're supposed to say, look at a globe. Come on, Glenn, keep up with me here.
Karen's not.
I'm
confirmed
hitting
yet.
these out of the park, and you're just standing there watching them sail over the fence. It's like, come on.
Kicking the ant hills. Oh, who's next
I
on
wonder
the
if
list?
baseball humor translates. I wonder if these guys are going. Where do they? Cause, I mean, like not like we know a lot of
I'm
baseball.
not going to come
but
up the cricket equivalent, so I don't know.
We already get enough stuff wrong.
Just images of Phil going, "Well, that was quite the banger." Is that right? I don't know.
All I know is Wicked Googly, and the only reason I know that's because of a Seinfeld commercial 3 years ago. Anyway.
You didn't pick up a lot of cricket from
Hitchhiker's
Black
Guide?
Orchid?
Oh, no.
Well, they cut
There's
all
more
the
of it in
interesting
Hitchhiker's
stuff.
Guide, too, though, yeah.
Our next piece of feedback comes from Odd Duck Phil. And he writes, comment question, "Hey, Hoopekins, hoping I can get this in under the buzzer as I've fallen behind and recently caught back up. So that being said, let me just shotgun everything at the comment question box and see what sticks."
As a side note, if you remember last week, he sent this in before we recorded last week, but we decided to hold it for this week.
Right.
That's true, because, he discusses End of Time in his feedback, and we were like, we're not going to read that this week. So, complete list of things for the last few weeks from Odd Duck Phil. Number 1, DC tangent from last podcast, Life on Mars. I squeed a little bit. As much as I love Who, I am first and foremost a fan of Batman, Superman, and the Justice League, as Sean can attest. The animated series from a few years back by Bruce Timm and Paul Dini. Well, let's just say I know them about as well as you guys know Doctor Who. Well, I hope this doesn't become a regular thing. This is traveling the vortex, not traveling the multiverse. It was still fun hearing it brought up. And yes, I can't wait for Justice League in Lego form. Number 2, Game of the Year. See above. Arkham City. Loved Portal 2, especially the performance of J.K. Simmons as Cave Johnson. But Arkham let me be the Batman. And the finale. Oh, the finale.
Oh, yes.
Which he has sworn me to secrecy in the way that we have sworn you to secrecy on some of this stuff. I am not allowed to know how Arkham City ends until I play it.
Oh, hell, yeah.
I mean,
absolutely.
and not that I would search that information out.
It
But
is
he's like, if I walk into a conversation, I'm supposed to run screaming from the room with fingers in the ears.
I've
so that
kept
I don't
myself
find
pure
out.
from it as
It
well.
is such an epic end to the story.
I have to tell a quick aside story because Phil is, I mean, he's all about the Batman. He's very, very big into this. And he's called me up and he's told me the story about how at one point in time he walks into the room and he's beating up the guy and the Penguin charges into the room with an RPG.
Yeah.
And he's firing at him. And Phil's weaving and dodging and rolling and just jumping all over the place. And explosions are going off and the Penguin's laughing. And Phil kind of goes, all right, that's it. I've had enough. And he bolts straight at him. Just charges across the room to get to him. And the Penguin fires the RPG. And Phil does this weird slide under the rocket move, comes up, punches the Penguin in the face, not like once or twice, but like 15 or 16 times, and then stands over his bloodied, bruised body. And Phil jumped off the couch, now he doesn't admit to this, but I'm sure this is what he did, screaming in his victory, "I'm Batman!" Now, I told him, when I play the game, and I get to this part, and the Penguin bursts into the room with this RPG, I'm immediately going straight at him so that I can call him up and go, "I'm not Batman. I took an RPG to the face." There can be only one. Number 3, The Next Doctor and Planet of the Dead. I liked The Next Doctor. Thought Morrissey did a great job. Not my favorite Christmas special, not even my favorite Tennant Christmas special, but still good. Planet of the Dead I'll rate as harmless. Didn't wow me much in any stretch, but at least it was fun. I really liked Michelle Ryan, but I've been a fan since Jekyll, which I recommend if you haven't seen it.
I didn't realize she was on Jekyll, which is in my instant queue, so I'm wanting to get to that.
Which was
now.
written by
Moffat.
Haven't seen it. And Glenn, I was with you during your argument against Keith until you dissed Phil in. I think I went from nodding in agreement to "how dare you" in the blink of an eye. Number 4.
That's the power of Fillion.
Waters of Mars. Tennant's best performance. It was amazing seeing him take that turn to start the episode with "I can't be here" attitude and slowly switch to "I am the Time Lord. I do as I please." It was brilliant and horrifying. Seeing the look on his face after Adelaide's suicide, he conveys so much without saying a word. Number 5. The End of Time. I'm of two minds on this one. The fan in me is gleeful from start to finish, while the critic I never knew I possessed sees problems. For the most part, thought the fan abruptly turns around and gives the critic a good kicking until he shuts up. The moment when he thinks he has beaten his destiny, only to hear those 4 knocks, is an absolute gut punch. It didn't seem to matter that I knew this was the end of the 10th incarnation. I was still not ready to see him go. Originally, I loved his goodbye. But the critic in me thought it was too long with the goodbyes and thought the final "I don't want to go" was a bit much. Given the "your song is ending" theme of the specials, it would have been a better ending to see him face the end with a shrug of acceptance and maybe go out with a final allons-y. But I've come back around on both issues. We may never see any of 10 companions again in Moffat's run. Yeah, holograms, blah, doesn't count. And so I'm giving the fans a chance to say goodbye to these characters was a nice touch. And now, knowing how important Doctor Who was to Tennant's career choice and how much of a dream come true the role was for him, and knowing that it was best for the show if he walked away, I can forgive a moment of breaking the fourth wall. That's not the Doctor saying goodbye. That's David. And while I think Smith was a great choice as 11, in that tearful moment, I didn't want him to go either. Okay, I think I'm done with this massive mess or randomness. Keep up the good work, guys. Odd Duck Phil.
I love these signs at Odd Duck.
If you're gonna own something, you own it. And Phil's that guy. He owns it. He just, yeah.
I almost agree with him. Oh, not almost. I do agree with him that. And Smith is fantastic as 11. I love Smith. Everyone knows that. In that tearful moment, I didn't want 11 or 10 to go either.
You cried too.
Yeah.
Which we discussed
which Alex brings up.
Oh, I'll wait for Alex.
The
then.
ranking increase.
I'll wait for Alex's ranking then. But we did discuss that Keith thought, since he cried at the departure of somebody else's Doctor, maybe he was due an increase in rank.
I would have to agree.
In fact, reading about all this and thinking about it again is getting me a little teary again.
Well, as always, thank you very much, Phil, for your writing, and I have to agree with a lot of what he said about End of Time. I think there's critic moments and there's fanboy moments, and it's a constant struggle between the two when we're watching it.
Sadly enough, every time I watch this, I'll talk about this more later, but every time I watch this, I have to force myself to watch it, because the first time I watched it, I think I was much more forgiving, because watching as a fan, I totally enjoyed a lot of the moments. We talked about this being a moment episode. There's lots of great moments in this, and the acting is fantastic. And so I always have to fight with the critic in me, and the more I watch it, because I start watching it more with a critical eye and realizing what was done poorly and what was done well, and what should have gone and what shouldn't have gone. And so I do the same thing. I struggle with the critic, and then the fanboy tries to jump in and beat the heck out of the critic. So that's how I watch The End of Time every time. The critic seems to win out a little more each time I watch it, as was a test in the
Friday Night.
We were both a little critical.
I
think.
Yeah.
And for you and I, it was both our second time.
Yeah.
Because I hadn't seen it since it originally.
And I had watched it the week before.
And you just watched it a couple days earlier.
Yeah.
And this was your
fifth or sixth
viewing, I would say. You're probably way up there.
Because I watched it a couple of times when it first aired. I watched it once when Holly watched it. I've watched it again a couple times since. So this is probably number 6. Yeah.
Well, moving on with feedback, we will finish the trifecta of Phils with Dr. Phil.
That's right.
That's a good episode title.
Phil
trifecta.
A fistful of Phils.
I think we need
the
one
alliteration
more for that.
from that too.
For a few Phils more. The good, the bad, the odd duck. I've just rewritten Sergio Leone.
Wait, so which one's the bad?
I can't say. That's up for them to say.
Determination.
Let me rephrase. Spoilers.
Anyway, here's Phil's audio for this week.
Hey guys, Dr. Phil here with just offering a few thoughts on The End of Time. Now, I'm not one, I guess you should say, that I despised it, because I know that I was not particularly keen on some of the previous specials. The main thing that kind of bugged me about The End of Time was really in a way that it let down the great setup at the end of Waters of Mars, which makes you think, okay, the Time Lord victorious, this overstepping his bounds as a Time Lord, he's going to pay dearly for that. I mean, he does pay dearly, but he doesn't pay dearly for what we thought he was going to pay dearly for. I would say that, we know that Russell T. Davis turned in his scripts very last minute for The End of Time, and some of the ideas were not necessarily fleshed out as well as they could be, but I would say that there's some great moments throughout End of Time. Specifically, I really enjoyed Timothy Dalton with the spit of Rassilon. It's as much humor as we all throw at that. I would say that I was like, okay, well, we have the master race. Everything's kind of set up around that gag or line, which was okay. But I really, it's like I thought, well, really I could have done without the whole episode, with those last few seconds with Rassilon, who didn't need to be Rassilon. But that's another can of worms. I mean, he could have just been Lord President. We didn't necessarily need him to be Rassilon. I think that probably either in a way minimizes what the possibilities could have been. I love the fact that the woman who was intended to be the Doctor's mother, was left ambiguous, so you could think it was someone like Susan, which would have been exceptionally interesting. I think that's probably the most compelling over other fan theories like Romana. But I think in a way that him being Rassilon kind of cheats the classic series legacy in a way. And maybe I shouldn't put it that way, but I thought in a way it kind of diminishes the power of Timothy Dalton's performance, which the script was not fabulous, but I thought that all the performances by the actors were very good. I mean, the Gollum master, munching was probably a bit, derivative, but I thought that the scene at the opening of Part 2 on Gallifrey was fabulous. I really enjoyed that a great deal, and loved all the special effects shots, and then it's just a room in black. Simple, effective, the gauntlet of doom that Timothy Dalton killed the one advisor with. But one thing I would say that I did miss in the End of Time was I love the fact that you had more than one color for the Time Lords. I do. I mean, they are based on the papacy in a way, having cardinals and such. But I miss the fact that you had variety in the Arcalians, the Patrexes, and the Pridonians, and I thought that was a little bit lost, a bit disappointing. I mean, yeah, like the TARDIS pulling the Earth through space in Journey's End and having one planet about to crash into another, everyone would have already been dead from the gravitational pull from that, but I don't think that's what was important. I mean, I think we have other big fish to fry, like David Tennant falling from a much higher distance than Tom Baker did in Legopolis, and he seemed to be just fine until he went into the wonderful cabinet of radiation, which I'm one of those people. I thought the ending, the farewell tour, was touching. I don't think it was necessary. I remember at the time someone goes, the Doctor goes around helping all sorts of people, helping Martha and Mickey, keeping Sarah Jane's son from getting run over by a car. But what does he do for a Captain Jack? He gives him a look of forgiveness, and then, well, you can fill in the blank there. I don't think that was dramatically necessary for Mr. Barrowman's character, but that's okay. It was nice for them to have the cantina scene they'd always wanted. But I thought that the end with Rose, the one line I wish he would have said is that next year was going to be fantastic. That would have been... I would have, been just in hog heaven if that had been the case. But the end was beautiful. The music was great. The destruction of the TARDIS was fabulous. Seeing Matt Smith, that whole scene, which I guess took a lot more time for the director than a lot of the previous scenes, because Moffat was there and they wanted to get it right. And I loved that final scene. That was great. But in a way, I wish that maybe... that when Tennant went down in that chamber after saving Wolf, and I thought his indignation of I could do so much more was great, and I thought that he should have regenerated then. I think, one of the minuses for the Tennant Doctor is being the emo Doctor, and watching The Confidential, that Tennant did not really want to say, I don't want to go, which is terribly less heroic. I mean, we can often draw comparisons. The Pertwee Doctor gets lost in the vortex trying to get back, stays alive long enough to get back to Earth. Dramatic, great, fabulous ending for what, in the case of Planet of the Spiders, is kind of a weak story. Peter Davison, he's the cliffhanger before he's going to try to crash the ship. He's feigning off regeneration because you can see the Quantel video effects. He holds off regenerating to save his best friend, and a friend he only had for one previous story. That's a powerful story of friendship. And I think the Wilf-Doctor relationship is mirrored beautifully there. But to have to hold off for a generation to be self-indulgent, and I think that's the problem I had with his farewell tour in Series 6, is it's not much of a farewell tour if it's going on for hundreds of years, I think that in a way diminishes the power of the drama. But again, there's so many things that go well in the End of Time that can be forgiven. Wilf, fabulous performance, hands down. His ad-libbing about the Boer War, talking to David Tennant, and the whole scene about him talking if you had you as his dad, was actually kind of based on the fact that Tennant's own father was on set that day. And I think that's wonderful insight from the Cultum Collective, so I can't take credit for that comment at all. But nonetheless, I think that in a way, the specials as an overall, Waters of Mars, fabulous. The Next Doctor, at least half of it was fabulous, the other half was okay. The End of Time, probably a bit of a narrative mess, not particularly well crafted story-wise, and I think in a way doesn't send off one of the most popular and beloved modern Doctors in a way that he deserved. And I mean, in a similar way, I love Logopolis, but I think that it could have been a much more heroic and better send-off for Tom Baker. But I shouldn't say that, too much, because of the fact that Colin Baker does not get much of a send-off, so it's Doctor is replete with missed opportunities and accidental triumphs. And in the end, I think Russell T Davies was exactly what the show needed. I mean, he's the one who brought it back. You should never, ever forget how grateful that many of us are that the show did come back. And it's really easy to be complacent and say, if you're a Stephen Moffat fan, that everything before Stephen Moffat, before Moffat and Anno Domini, that's how a lot of fandom is everyone has their era. And I love a lot about many different eras, and that's probably one of the great strengths of Doctor Who, is that as it goes on and on and on, is that there's always something new to make us rethink about what we think Doctor Who is. Because I know that very next episode, the 11th hour, when that very first shot gets done and the theme comes crashing in, the first reaction I had, my Doctor Who is back. And that is the first time I'd had that reaction since Rose, when I first thought, my show is back. It's alive again, and this is great. So it always can keep reinventing itself. And I think that you guys have done a great job. And Keith, now that you're caught up, bravo. You are a strong person to have gone through all of this in such a detailed way, and you deserve many, many, many praises for being able to deal with all of Who being thrown straight at you. So anyway, gentlemen, sorry for my ramblings today, because it's almost 10 minutes worth. But all the best. Keep up the great work on the show, as always. And looking forward to hearing your thoughts. So take care, guys. Bye-bye.
All right. Thank you, Phil.
Absolutely. Always,
of course,
great
Phil,
to hear.
Yeah, Phil got into a lot on that. On his
the first thing I want to bring up
episode.
is I disagree with him about the farewell tour of season 6. Because he's not in the process of fighting off regeneration during that.
No,
it's his farewell tour
because
of postponing.
Well, he has control. He has control.
Yeah.
He knows he's not on limited time because he's just postponing it, and he gets to postpone it as long as he wants.
Yeah.
And
it's not.
It's finalized once the death of the Brigadier.
He's aware,
sinks
it's not him postponing regeneration. It's
right.
postponing literal
death,
death.
actual death.
So I don't agree with Phil at all with that comparison.
Why am I not surprised that you... I'm going to complain because he criticized Matt Smith leaving
it's
and going away.
Even if it weren't Matt Smith, even if with Matt Smith weren't my Doctor, it's a completely different goodbye tour.
I can complain about a 2-year goodbye tour. A 3-hour tour. That's all you need.
3-hour tour. Or it's that 3-hour tour lasted 4 years, 4 seasons?
Was it only 4?
I don't know.
It seemed like it was a lot longer.
Plus we had the movies, The Globetrotters came at
I
one
love the
point.
Globetrotters on Gilligan's
We
Island.
got rescued a few times. Anyway.
Crashed back on the same island.
Right, ended up in the same. Well, left on purpose because they couldn't put up with the. They couldn't put up with society. Sorry. It's like being in prison and then going back because you can't function well. Anyway, sorry. Wow, a tangent to Gilligan's Island.
Or spoilers, Lost.
We went on our own 3-hour.
Oh,
tour.
don't
even. No, come on.
We have to go back.
No,
we have to go
we
back.
don't have to go back ever. I'd rather go back to Gilligan's Island than I would rather go back to the island.
I would agree. Anyway, but
I didn't see polar bears
Phil
on
makes
Gilligan's.
Phil makes some great points.
What would you rather show up if you were lost in the jungle? Would you rather see a polar bear or would you rather see Wrong Way Feldman? I mean, come on. There's just no comparison here. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
You got the others, and you've got the cannibals. The headhunters.
At least you'll only be put in the brainwash room with the others, as opposed to being eaten alive.
No. There was that crazy weird scientist guy had the brainwash room too. He got Gilligan and put him up in the castle. Right. They did the Frankenstein thing, and he was the great actor. Oh yes, we're going to go do this. Oh, jeez.
I'm thinking.
There are a lot of parallels.
I'm thinking that Gilligan's Island is more of a inspiration for Lost than I initially thought it was.
Oh. So what you're saying is that J.J. ripped it off.
Technically, no.
Pretty much.
All that stuff would have been Damon Lindelof. And
Gilligan's
Carlton
Island never
Cruise at that
moved
point.
when you turn the donkey wheel. I'll give him that.
Spoilers.
It may have. How do you
They never found the donkey wheel, did they?
How do you think Wrong Way Feldman kept winding back up there? I mean, they kept coming back to the island. Maybe it was following them. I don't know.
Oh wow. Well, they
Mark
did
your bingo
realize
cards.
they did realize by the end of Gilligan's Island run that they really weren't that far off from Hawaii. They were actually a lot closer than they thought they were. So I don't know, maybe. Maybe the island does move. Wow. Oh, we got to talk about Phil's point here.
But it didn't move in time.
I'll figure out a way to work that in.
Didn't Gilligan go back to Nazi era Island at one point?
What?
That must have been a dream sequence.
What?
I don't remember. He was in charge.
Did
at
you
one point,
did you
like in an
insert
office.
Gilligan into that episode of Misfits?
No, but that would have been cool too.
More to Phil's points.
More to Phil's points.
Well, he does bring up the fact that this script was turned in late by RTD, and I think it's well accounted for in the writer's tale when they the revision of it that Moffat was RTD. I think RTD had this grand idea for a final episode, but I think he had several grand ideas, and then when he went to string them together, that's where it lacks. It doesn't work well. Yes, the master race. It's almost like the first episode is a complete write up to one big giant gag. Is what it feels like
It's a
when
pun.
we get there. Yeah,
It really is.
and so that's very bothersome for the first episode.
It felt almost. Odd Duck Phil's going to complain about this when I say this. It felt a little bit like a Terry Pratchett book. I really enjoy reading Terry Pratchett. Terry Pratchett's a very funny writer. A lot of Terry Pratchett's books, specifically in the Discworld series, there's a gag. And he will spend 3/4 of the book setting everything up. And then you get to the gag, and it's telegraphed, and you know it's coming. And you're like, really? You're going to go there with it? And then you get there, and you're like, ha ha, that was funny. And you kind of get through it, and you're like, oh, geez. The one gag that worked was in Moving Pictures, and it was a King Kong joke, which realistically had been set up from book one. And I laughed myself silly. When it works phenomenally well. Most of his stuff doesn't. That's what this episode felt like to me. It felt like a very, very much the master race. Oh, really? He went there?
Yeah.
Okay. Just
Something else that he touched on that really bothered me was the Rassilon thing. I sort of agree on the one side of it that Rassilon did not, that Timothy Dalton's character did not have to be Rassilon, that he could have been Lord President. He could have been whoever was in power or at the power grab of that time. On the flip side of that,
in the middle of the Time War,
all
who
along,
better to have?
Well, that's just it. All along, I've been saying that the classic series paints Rassilon as this, fantastic guy who founded Time Lord Society, who, is set up on this pedestal, is regal, has his own tower in the Dead Zone? Dark
Death
Zone. Death
Zone.
Zone. I'd say that every time. It's his own tower in the Dark Zone, where his
Darth
Death Zone. Death Zone, where the tomb is.
I didn't know there was a Sith
And
zone on the
we always have these.
come to the Death Zone.
We always have these moments of the regality of Rassilon because everything's named after him: the cloak, the sash, the blah blah blah.
The spittle of Rassilon, Phil.
But-
I give you full props for that. That
But
was
all
awesome.
along, we always get these hints of what Rassilon may actually have been. He may have been this dark character who was not necessarily this good guy that did play these games in the Death Zone at one time, that set this up particularly to do that, was probably more in league with Omega than they let on to believe. And so I've been saying that all along, though part of mine is based on the fact that I had seen this before. So that kind of taints my opinion as we go. So in that sense, it does work in the fact that, okay, now maybe we're really getting to see what Rassilon is. And if you can justify the fact that Rassilon's there and no longer dead, hanging out in his tomb, recruiting others to come spend immortality with him.
if they can bring the Master back.
Exactly. They obviously went to very dire needs during the Time War, which we're going to talk about in another show, so we won't dwell much on the Time War. But they had drastic needs that they could have plucked him out in some sort of resurrection sort of way and brought him to the forefront, realizing how important of a man he was, and this could be their leader to save them from this giant war. So I think it works for me both ways. I think it could have gone one way, but I was okay with the Rassilon ideal to set forth the epicness of this episode, the right title?
I'd allow that.
So
I think knowing what I know just about Rassilon, the fact that that's who Timothy Dalton is, I mean, what a better actor to play Rassilon than Timothy Dalton.
I could have thought of a lot of better actors, but I thought Dalton on the flip side of that,
I
Dalton
think
did a fantastic job
with it.
I
And-
think he did great.
And that's how that it just so hits home how bad things are on Gallifrey. Why the Doctor did what he did because of Rassilon.
Well, I
Because
don't think you. I don't think you can credit that all to Rassilon, but he
Well,
certainly was the
the
driving force
situation,
behind it.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think with Timothy Dalton, first of all, fanboy squee. Timothy Dalton.
Timothy Dalton. That's awesome.
did you know it was his voice when he started narrating, or did you not know until you saw him?
I had heard that he was going to be in it.
I saw a picture. Sorry.
I didn't.
I knew, but I forgot until I saw him, and I was like, "Oh yeah, that's what that voice is."
How could you forget this was the last tenant that you were getting? You should have said, well, where's Timothy Dalton been?
I was so absorbed in this is the
Well,
last
I
tenant
suppose that's
that
true, yeah.
all
They were
previous
on that
spoilers were
emotional
out
high.
of my head.
That is true.
I think I kind of agree with Phil. I think they could have Timothy Dalton could have been any Time Lord president, and I'd have been okay with it. I have zero problems with him being Rassilon, and I think he did a great job as Rassilon.
He did.
I just wish they'd have given us one line, and I don't think that's too much to ask for. One line to explain why it's Rassilon.
Yes. No, I would
that
agree.
would have
That's what leaves
that would have
everything.
completely cleared the
And they
cobwebs.
also
for me.
It
don't
feels
even
like name
say-
dropping is what
They
it
don't
does.
even
Yeah.
say Rassilon until the very end when they're being sent back.
Right.
We don't know it's Rassilon until that point.
Right.
Which the first time I saw it was I confused.
I was
Because
too.
it's just Lord President, Lord President, Lord President, and then the Doctor says Rassilon back to the time where it's like, whoa, wait, what happened?
Wait,
Who's this guy?
He's what now?
So yeah,
Something else that both Phils touched on was the length of the end, of the goodbye. And I would concur with both. Phil talked about the critic himself and the fan enjoying that it was a send-off, and it was breaking the fourth wall at the end when Tennant says the line, I don't want to go. I also have to side with Phil. I'm so on the fence and of two minds of this, because I completely enjoyed seeing all of the companions again and having David Tennant, who had been the Doctor for 3 years, be able to get, his last goodbye, be able to see them again. But then again, on the flip side, I also subscribe to the theory that just really cheapens the reunion of Journey's End, of bringing all those guys back in order to give them their one last hurrah. And so we end on a high note of the joy of getting to spend one of his last adventures with the companions that he has, celebrated with over the years. And then now we get to turn around and say goodbye. Now, in reality, the only ones that he has initial contact with is, I guess, let me think back through these. Mickey and Martha do see him briefly at the end.
They all see him.
Sarah Jane sees him across the street.
Yes. Jack sees him across the bar.
Jack sees him across the bar. Okay, so I guess my point is Rose is the only one that has no connection to him. That it's really only a one-way thing. Because this is pre-Rose setting off on her adventures.
Yes.
And that's done well enough, and I understand, and it makes sense why they do that. Because
as we were going through the goodbye, I was like, how are they going to bring Rose in if they were even going to?
It works.
And I really liked how they did it.
But again, to me, it's sort of like, I wish there was a way to have done that with Journey's End, a better way to do the goodbye that way, because it sort of cheapens the reunion for me slightly. I'm not bothered that much by it. I mean, they're both fantastic fan moments because you get to see all of them again.
And part of me thinks of it as...
And had we said goodbye actually to any of them anyway? I mean, we have, but we haven't. I guess Donna doesn't get the connect again because she, for all intents and purposes, doesn't know who he is anymore.
So. But Wilf gets the goodbye.
Yes.
And
he's
still
vicariously...
He still
vicariously through that.
I guess I kind of also see it as... the reason why I'm okay with the Lost finale. I'm not going to go into details, but it's an emotional goodbye for the viewers. It's an emotional closing of the doors for the viewer. As you're invested in all these characters and you want to see them okay, you want to say goodbye to them because you're not going to see them again.
I'm biting my tongue, I'm biting my tongue, I'm biting my tongue.
Same reason.
I'm biting my tongue, I'm biting my tongue. Sorry.
The exploding console room, it doesn't make any sense.
Well,
it's metaphorically saying goodbye to that console room.
Well, I'm gonna.
That's all it is.
You're right.
You said that to me earlier in the week because you'd watched this before. I'm going to presume here. I'm going to go into presumption mode here because watching it this time, there's so much residual energy coming from this regeneration that I can almost expect that perhaps this was such an intense regeneration because of the fact that he absorbed all of this nuclear energy, essentially. And that's kind of a release along with the energy that's produced during the regeneration.
But Eccleston absorbed all the time energy.
Perhaps that's something that is...
which caused him to regenerate, which was just as forceful of a regeneration.
But the TARDIS is going to absorb and deal with that energy differently than it is the nuclear energy or radiation that was absorbed by Tennant from this event. So... I'm presuming, but I think I can sort of forgive the. And you're right; it is for the matter of we're going to start over. We're starting from scratch here, and we're going to give you a new set. But
I don't see how radiation
can
cause
doesn't bother.
explosions.
I don't. Again, I'm not just saying it's just the radiation. I think it's that energy acts as fuel for the residual energy that's being put out by the regeneration process, and amplifying that. And the TARDIS has never had to deal with that before, so you're right. That's what it is. It's set up.
It's
for
metaphorically
a new,
saying goodbye to everything.
It
It's that one little twist of the knife, as if this hasn't been gut wrenching enough that we've put you
Say
through
goodbye to the console you've
Wilf,
known for 40 years.
and now the Doctor, and you know he's coming, and you know this is the last bit, and now we're going to say goodbye to all of these companions that you've known to come to love over the years. Blah 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 blah. Now we're taking the TARDIS away from you too.
Yeah.
And it is metaphorical, and I understand it. I almost come down on the other side of it, where I don't like you playing with my emotions this way.
I can see that too,
It's almost too
No, I can see
calculated.
Stop pulling the heartstrings
Yeah.
too much.
Yeah, really. I mean, it does. It's almost too calculated, because the TARDIS is always
It's the constant.
it's a constant. It's a place of safety. Even when Susan's running around
Well,
with a knife,
it's-
threatening to kill people,
that's just it, though.
it's a safe room.
It's essentially the same TARDIS for most of the classic series, and there's a familiarity of it. Enough of the design is familiar through the whole thing that when we do get changes in the classic series, it's almost subtle enough that, with the exception of the
Backup.
den console room with the
The man cave.
Yes, they have that. but even then, it's introduced in a way that we don't bring too much attention. Exploding, blowing the thing up, it falling, collapsing is bringing attention to it. Whereas the console changes throughout Classic Who were always, okay, it's just going to be there, and we're not going to mention it, or we're going to make a slight mention, as in Peter Davison, dusting off the new console in just the console piece in the Five Doctors.
I almost
This is the time that it's very obvious.
It almost makes me wonder if it wasn't thought of maybe as a mistake to do that, and why Neil Gaiman's Doctor's Wife episode wrote in I archive all the console rooms. It was that almost kind of felt like thank goodness, because that means it didn't really blow up.
Yeah. Well, it did, but it didn't.
Yeah, I mean,
It did,
right.
but there's a copy somewhere.
Right, exactly.
yeah, I don't know, maybe not, but maybe that was kind of.
Although
like
it's simple enough
we're
just to
gonna pull that
change
from
the
out there.
desktop theme
Well,
too.
yeah.
So
That is also a comforting idea to me, because
Yeah.
it means you can always go back and revisit a classic
That's
if
true.
you choose to. It's there.
Phil May had a lot of great mentions. He had a lot of good points about this. Some that I don't know that I don't completely agree with. But going back to the rushed feel of this script, it really feels like in between the moments that are really great moments, it's like we're just filling the gaps, and that's where I think the first episode and the first 2/3 of the second episode of Part 2 fall down. So. We got a lot of people chiming in. I guess we should let people in on what's happening here. Is so many people had a lot of great things to say about End of Time Part 1 and 2. We're kind of sprinkling our reviews in between the reviews that are coming in. So if you're confused when we're done reading feedback and there's not much more we talk about, it's because we're kind of reviewing along with you guys.
Should I give my synopsis now, then?
We should probably do that.
The End of Time, Part
I don't think
1.
it matters. People are
Christmas
people
Eve, and
know.
the Doctor is reunited with Wilf to face the return of an old enemy. In the Time Part 2, the Doctor faces the end of his life as the Master's victory unleashes the greatest terror of all.
No.
Okay, only because we have to do that. We did it.
It won't be a traveling the vortex without a
That's
dun
true. That's true.
No, there have been.
I guess
there
that's
have been
true.
a few
without,
of them that didn't
without
have
my
done
dramatic synopses. Next bit of feedback comes from Holly.
That's right. A few more people have chimed in on this, and
No.
yeah, I can't believe that so many people.
And some people wrote Cyberman Bob length feedback.
Now that's just mean to these people. Don't do that.
That was kind of mean. Our next bit of feedback is from Holly.
I'm just kidding.
Hi, Holly.
It's titled Thoughts on End of Time Part 1 and 2. Parts 1 and 2. Hey, guys. The farewell of 10 and David Tennant as the Doctor. Giggled at the fact that the Doctor has a remote control lock for the TARDIS and that the Ood clearly didn't get the joke. That was funny. It was a nice moment.
That was funny.
The Doctor's starting to realize that things are going to turn bad really fast. Loved Wilf's group to track down the Doctor. The conversation between the Doctor and Wilf. Wow. You know how the Doctor's seeing the writing on the wall. Even when Wilf gives the Doctor his gun to take care of the Master, you can tell that Wilf wants him to still fight and not give in to what's already been seen by the Ood. Wilf going into the TARDIS with the Doctor to get away from Sylvia was hilarious. This makes Wilf a companion now, right? Absolutely.
For those of you that count traveling in the TARDIS as an official companion status, Wilf has made
Wolf
it.
qualifies. At least in my mind it does, she says. The scenes with Lucy and the mysterious group that brought the Master back was interesting, though I'm still scratching in my head as to who the group was looking for. Plus the shots with the woman who I first thought was Lucy at the end of the Last of the Time Lords picking up the Master's ring was almost a nod to the Flash Gordon movie, in a way, with us not knowing who the person was picking it up. That was one of the things that I noticed when at the end of Last of the Time Lords. I totally had a end of Flash Gordon picking up the ring mystery, because we get the end with the question mark. Is it?
That's how they should have ended the episode. They should
That
have
would
thrown
have
the
been
title up there.
fantastic. Oh, absolutely, would have loved that. But then I kind of thought the same thing. You
A Doctor Who
sort
theme
of
done by Queen.
you sort of lend your mind to the fact that it's Lucy that picks the ring up, but the reveal there is well done. She goes on to write about...
And boy, were we wrong.
Yes, we were quite wrong. Part 2. The rescue scene with the Doctor being tied to the chair was quite funny. Worst rescue ever, indeed. Finally find out who's behind the Master's insanity, the rest of the Time Lords. No wonder the Doctor decided to get out of Gallifrey when he did. Quite a few nods to Star Wars in this episode, with Wilf helping shoot down some of the fighters. The bar scene with Jack near the end of the episode really could double for an updated, higher-class Mos Eisley cantina. The Fornox scene after the Master dies was so heart-wrenching. Agreed. Mm-hmm. I really didn't think at first, when watching this, that Wilf would be the one that knocked 4 times that would be the end of the Doctor. I always assumed it would be the Master. I really felt for 10 right before he regenerates and says that he doesn't want to go. I wonder if that thought crossed any of the other Doctors' minds, or if they were ready to start over again in a new incarnation. Actually, the 5th Doctor sort of has the...
Well, and...
I don't want to go-ish attitude about it, but we'll
There's shades of Adriani.
Yes,
when,
we'll revisit that when we
when
get to it.
10 talks to Wilf in the diner about regeneration, he talks...
As though it's death of
it
this
feels like
character,
death,
yeah.
and a new man saunters off.
Yeah. No,
That was a very
absolutely
emotional
right.
scene,
It was a very well explained way to explain regenerations for each persona of the Doctor.
Yeah.
I wonder if we already did that. Love the introduction to 11, and we're off to begin new adventures with Matt Smith as the Doctor. Geronimo! Looking forward to hearing your thoughts on these final 2 episodes of David Tennant's run. Holly from Wisconsin. Thank you, Holly.
Absolutely.
No, I know we
have
kind
to
of chimed
say-
in as we went there, but
She talks about the Fornox scene. I was so absorbed in it. I was like, no, he escaped it. He's not going to regenerate. I was so absorbed in it, I had completely forgot. The fact that Matt Smith is coming wasn't even in my mind while watching that whole part. And I was like, but he survived. No. And the Knox, oh yeah. So heart-wrenching.
It was a gut punch, as Phil said. It's the only way to describe it, because through the whole, this is one of those moments of brilliance that comes along, and we get it, and we set it up early in the specials that he will knock 4 times and your song is ending, and we've planted that seed and we've nurtured it and it's growing, and then we get to this and the Master shows up and he's banging on the drum and it's just like, oh, there it is.
that's it.
And we see it.
I honestly never thought
it's there.
Master when they said knock 4 times, because I guess it just never, until I watching it, never occurred to me that the sound of drums was. My mind never went back to that.
See, and that was the thing. When they got to the barrel scene and he was pounding on the side of that barrel, my first thought was, oh, okay, it makes sense that the Master is the one that's knocking 4 times.
Yeah,
totally.
that's when I thought that
I was
too.
still playing in my mind that, well, that's 4 knocks 2 in the Master's mind. So it's him knocking in rhythm to what's in his head, the sound of the drums. And so that worked for me, and I was totally blown away by that. I was like, okay, when here's the signal. This is where we've signaled the end of the Doctor.
When they first referenced knock 4 times, did you guys think Master at all?
I did, because of the sound of drums, and plus I'd seen a picture. But when I that's just it. I got spoiled on this. I knew the Master was coming back. I knew Timothy Dalton was going to be in it. So I
assumed from just the spoilers that I got on it that the Master was signaling the end of
I
of
didn't
the
until after Waters of Mars. It was right up to the week before
when you saw the trailer.
when I saw the trailer. And then,
Yeah, 'cause
then,
they
then as
show
soon
the
as,
Master
then
in
as
it.
soon as I saw him, then it was like, oh, the drums. Okay, that's where they were going with this. But we set all this up, and we go through it, and all the craziness that ensues. And then he does. He survives. Probably shouldn't have, but we'll get into that.
Oh.
And he's fought off the
Can we
Master.
talk about that next?
He's fought off the Time Lords, and he's still there.
He clicked the revolver a lot.
which I don't think those revolvers click like that, but
Once.
I'll
That's all
forgive
you
it.
need.
I think that was just fancy
It was
sound
dramatic,
editing.
yes,
It wasn't
yeah.
actually a cock of the
It was
revolver.
for
If it's not a
dramatic
cock,
emphasis.
that is a very loose revolver. It needs to be
It's
tightened.
for dramatic
Maybe it
emphasis.
was the buckle on his belt flying around. I don't know. Anyway, so we go through all this, and he sits up, and the reaction on David Tennant's face, I made it. I survived.
Yeah, it's
I'm
elation.
okay.
It's elation.
yeah.
And you're elated along with him.
Exactly. You're right there, and you're riding that euphoric high.
Even though you know he's going.
you're physically exhausted.
He announced an entire year ahead of time that he was leaving. It was signaled all the way through the specials that these would be the last of the specials.
Your song is ending.
Your song is ending.
You still have that moment of maybe he won't regenerate. Maybe this is the big twist.
You're physically
That'll-
exhausted from dealing with all of this that has come.
big
And he
twist
sits
is not
up,
yet
and you're elated. And then it's not big. It's
different
not
twist.
dramatic. It's
It's
not a
such
drum
a
pound.
subtle
It's
thing.
it's
It's
just
so well
just
done.
just a knock.
A
very timid dunk 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 dunk.
Mm.
And his look collapses. And my first thought was, well, but who? Everybody's dead. Who's left? Dunk 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 dunk. And as he starts to turn, I went, no.
yes.
And I was just destroyed.
And I love that
I
that
thought-
answers the doctor's question from the diner of why you, why you
Yeah,
know
yeah.
it's something. It's not happenstance that we've run into each other this many times.
I thought, Wilf, expletive. Why couldn't you have knocked less than 4 times? Really? Did you need 4, 3,
Well, and
2?
Wilf is so
5?
Wilf is so innocently portrayed in this, and it's so wonderfully done, and it's so wonderfully acted by Bernard Cribbins.
Oh, he did
and
such a good job.
I get chills every time I think of Wilf in this episode. That he is so allowed to shine in this. I mean, he has his moments in Journey's End and The Stolen Planet, but he has so many moments to shine in this. And I can't say enough good things about the character. I can't say enough good things about how he was written, and I cannot say enough good things about Bernard Cribbins. He just did such a fantastic job. And I still am championing the cause for Moffat to bring Wilf back.
Oh, I think that would
absolutely
be
want to see that.
fantastic.
I think that would him and Matt Smith paired would be wonderful. Oh, so much fun. Anyway,
I want Will for full-time companion season 7.
yeah, I think so too. That would be so much fun. I don't see it happening, but let's do
No,
it.
let's
I'd
just do
love
it.
to that would get into the we talked about an older companion. Would be a lot
Yeah.
of fun. You know, so in the vein of Evelyn Smythe from the audio series, that would be a lot of fun. A whole new gamut of things you can
Well,
do.
and he comes across from such a, Wilf comes from an interesting place anyway, not just from the fact that he's older, but he is so military-minded, but not the brigadier. He's military-minded from the, we're going to go and do, I mean, he is...
He's military
He's
minded,
a
but
member-
a dreamer.
he's a
at the
member-
same
Queen
time.
and Country.
He is a member of the greatest generation.
Yes.
We are going to go and do this because it's the right thing to do.
Yes,
and pairing him up with Matt Smith would really bring an interesting dynamic to the,
He's Donna without the feminist
Yeah.
tinge to it. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? He's
He
really
really
they
is.
really the having him being her grandfather is really written well because they're cut from the same cloth. Donna just has a different style to things because A, she's a female, B, she's younger.
Yeah.
You know, C, she hasn't seen the things that Wilf has. And they're really just similar characters but enough different that it wouldn't be pairing him with Donna again. It would be a whole nother dynamic.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
It's just, I can't say.
I get cold
can't say
chills
enough.
thinking about the
Yeah,
possibility.
absolutely.
Quite literally.
Can we talk about the fall? I know he hasn't seen Logopolis, but we've got to talk about the fall.
I wanted to talk about David Tennant's portrayal
Go ahead.
after the knock.
Yeah, go ahead.
Real
Sorry.
quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
What did you guys think of that? The first viewing,
Devastating.
and Sarah pointed out that she didn't like how David Tennant portrayed that, and I think it was also how it was written. But I think for me,
Oh, his getting angry that it's,
Yeah.
of course it's you.
and his getting, I could do so much more. I'm so important. A bit more of that Time Lord triumphant. But I view it as him trying to convince himself not to save one person in order to save himself, in order to save who knows how many other people. That's how I view it in my mind.
Let me put it in this perspective, because having watched it now 5 times, there's no moment in this entire 2-part story where you have such a conflict of emotions.
Mm-hmm.
Because not only do you realize that this is it, and this is happening, that this is where they're going with this, and you're so sad because you're about to lose the 10th Doctor and you know it's going to happen. But you're also furious at this speech that he's giving. But on the flip side of that, and the more I watch this, the delivery is almost the aspect of its exaggeration on the Doctor's part to drive home the fact that Wilf is important, that Wilf is the most important part of this story. And it's almost, the more you watch it, it's almost David Tennant throwing that out there in the sense of, this is how I could be, this is how Time Lord's society has bred all of us to be, based on what just happened, but this is why I am not that. This is why I'm not from that. Despite what I have done recently and gone off track, this
still
is
the
at
Doctor
core
you know.
who I am.
Yeah.
And then when it gets to that moment where he then falls into the, just how important Wilf is, and that it is totally worth it, and he's so admiring of Wilf and why it's important that he lives and that he does this for him. It's such an emotional. You're so tugged in that moment that just looking at it and stepping back and going, it wasn't his intention at all to make Wilf feel like, he was the reason this was happening, and it wasn't his intention at all to make it seem like Wilf was insignificant. He was putting it all out there so that we understood when we get to that point where this is who I am, and that's where I looked at it, especially in this last viewing.
Yeah.
And I really appreciated the way the scene was written this time, and that's how my perspective of it.
It comes across, and I think part of Sarah's problem is that she had problems with
It was like she had problems with the fact that it was like he was throwing a temper tantrum.
Well, but Sarah had problems with David Tennant's portrayal of the Doctor through the specials.
Well, yeah, that's true.
I mean, as good a story as Waters of Mars is, she did not like where he went into this dark place with the Time
and
Lord
then he
Victorious.
picks up a gun, and
she had issues with a lot of that. But I think that in a way is the twisted genius of this, from what you just said. And Dr. Phil pointed out that we never really get to see the implications of Time Lord Victorious. I have to disagree with that. I think by this speech, when he throws his tantrum, I think this is him kind of summing up all of the seeds that were sown throughout the specials leading up to the Time Lord Victorious moment, that this is it. This is the final tipping point, that he could be Time Lord Victorious and walk away and leave Wilf and be done with it and go on and do greater things. But he's also
That's
reminding
not who the
himself,
Doctor is.
I can't.
Yeah.
I flirted with it before, and I failed miserably. And it's one thing to have set up this, he will knock 4 times, and the villain is going to kill the Doctor. The villain's going to be responsible. The bad guy's out there, and he's the boogeyman, and he's going to get you. And it's not. It's his friend. It is a companion. It's Wilf. And that cuts him to the core more than anything else, and that's when he realizes that I can't do it. I couldn't not do it for anybody else. I especially can't not do it for Wilf.
and Blake was over for Friday Night who had seen like the first half of this.
Blake's reaction
And-
was priceless.
He hadn't seen the regeneration or
He'd missed
part
all
two.
of part 2. Hadn't seen it, so it was a first for him.
because he had kind of jumped around with Who anyways, and his reaction to the knocking was, oh bleep. Oh bleep. Oh bleep. It was so priceless. And I was like, I just turned to him, I'm like, yeah.
It was an encapsulated moment that all of us had, because he went from disbelieving shock to further disbelieving shock to instant anger that this is where they were going with it.
Realization shock.
Realization shock to utter acceptance and collapse. Just that whole roller coaster right there in minutes. The other thing I want to say, and this is something that it wasn't in his feedback, but I talked with Duckville during the week, and this was something that he had brought up to me in a phone conversation. He said one of the things that he really admired about End of Time was, had any other doctor clung as tenaciously to life as David Tennant did in his portrayal of this. And not just from the standpoint of the I don't want to go, but everything that he fights against throughout the specials and leading up to this, and the fact that when he arrives and Ood Sigma's like, dude, where have you been? We've been calling. Oh, well, I wasn't in a hurry because I don't want to go. Everything really, it's not just the pompous nature of Time Lord Victorious. It's the David Tennant doctor. It's Doctor Number 10. That's not who he is. He's not the big epic. He's not the Matt Smith. No. I'm going to go to my own death and be okay with it, even though we got out of that. But I mean, he does that. But
I have no doubt that when he goes to regeneration, he will go to it much like he did for the Wedding of River Song.
Yeah, that it'll just be an accepted. Okay,
it will be okay. It's my time.
It's
going.
my time to go. But nothing about David Tennant's regeneration, nothing about any of his 3 years before, if you count the specials, in the TARDIS, is wired that way. And
oh wait, no, you're right.
Yeah,
never mind.
Ish.
I'm thinking
3 seasons.
I'm thinking RTD.
Specials.
I'm sorry,
3 seasons.
Yeah,
3
RTD
seasons of
was
specials. And so in a way, it made perfect sense that he would cling as tenaciously. Yeah, it was a nice little break of the fourth wall and a nod to that, but just that he would hold on for all it was worth, because his doctor was so passionate about all of it.
You know what? I pointed this out Friday night, but you notice what is paralleled here. If you know Christian, if you know the Bible, it's very parallel to Jesus's prayer in the Garden of Gethsemane. That the whole Gethsemane, the whole conversation in there is very parallel to Christ, his prayer to God. There's this whole buildup of, I don't want to do this. I'm God on earth. I don't have to do this. I could do this. I could go on. I could walk away from here. I could go on and do great things on earth. But this is my fate, and I'm accepting of this, and this is what has to really be done in order to do so. And then, in turn, there's a parallel from the crucifixion, because Jesus does make the one more, why hath you forsaken me? The one plea to, I don't want to go. I mean, and that is echoed in that scene there as well. So there's a lot of parallel to that, whether you believe in Christian theology or not. That's very well echoed in this build-up here as well, and that's another thing that I took away from it and gleaned from that as well.
How much do you think of that parallel lends to what Stephen Moffat has done with season 5, the fact that the Doctor's gotten too big for his britches?
Not so much, because I don't know that. I mean, I don't think you can parallel it, because I don't think Christ.
No. That's I'm saying. I'm not saying that. I'm saying
you're paralleling the fourth series or the
that Stevens that Moffat sees that parallel to Jesus and says, okay, we need to scale it back a little bit. And that's part of what leads to, I need to fall off the radar. Am I the only one that sees that?
No, I agree. I mean, compared with, we've talked about all of the big epicness of RTD to push the Doctor into the forefront. I mean,
to make him almost a god
when he becomes back to life because of the power of belief and clapping your hands because I believe in the Doctor.
I think it's almost
there's bits of that.
I think it's almost, this is what I would parallel to. If you've seen The Last Temptation of Christ, I'm going to spoil this, so anybody that hasn't seen this, I'm sorry. The Last Temptation of Christ is essentially the first two acts parallel the Gospels essentially to the T. I mean, they really tell the beginning of the
direct
disciples.
adaptation.
Yeah, and then once he goes up onto the cross and steps off and comes down and lives life as a normal man, and you've got this after what could have been. You don't get necessarily, you get him just living as a man and not having to be that God. Whereas in the Doctor Who realm, you get to that point of crucifixion, but then on the flip side of that, you get the aftermath of what, yes, he becomes more godlike, he becomes more of a deity-ish type thing, and then steps back and flies under the radar after that. Whereas in Last Temptation, it's all in his mind, and it was the last temptation of Christ, and we realized that none of that really happened. It was all in his head of what could be if he just came down and used his godlikeness powers to come down off the cross. So in that aspect, I can see how it's sort of maybe a continuation in the, we have built all this up, and while 10 went to his death, we still have this
He's still at
deitiness.
this
Yeah, we're
crescendo.
still at this crescendo where we have to deal with that. And so I kind of do see that. Just if I liken it to the two scenarios of what happens after the crucifixion, or what could have happened after the crucifixion, if it really does with Matt Smith, and I'm sure there's Christians out there saying blasphemy, blasphemy. I apologize for making this parallels if it's offending you, but I can sort of see where you're coming from that aspect.
Traveling the Vortex, the only podcast where we can compare Doctor Who to Gilligan's Island and Christ in the same episode.
Well, you guys wanted to talk about the fall.
Yes, can we talk about the fall?
Let's talk about the fall.
Can I tell you any time since, what was it, 1981? 80? No, it was later. It was earlier than that. 79?
Legopolis?
Yeah. Since Legopolis, anytime the Doctor falls from more than 10 feet from anywhere, I cringe. So when he's going to jump out of this spaceship and jump to the floor, I went back to this.
1981.
Oh my gosh, no. I just kept him having flashbacks of the Doctor falling from the radio telescope 50 plus feet and my Doctor dying. My Doctor regenerating. So as Tennant jumps out of this thing, I thought, this is the end. He's going to die.
Honestly, I thought that too.
So then I have this problem now with my Doctor only fell 50 feet and regenerated.
Onto grass.
Onto grass. And 10 gets to fall hundreds of feet and not die?
It's not just
not fair.
It's not just the hundreds of feet.
Onto a marble floor.
Hythe has a
Through
huge
glass.
problem. Hythe has a huge problem with this. We put the glass roof in there. No problem.
Well, that
marble
slowed his
floor at the
fall.
bottom. No problem.
problem.
What I have a problem with is that he dropped out of a zooming spaceship that, if we are to believe the very exciting sequence that preceded this, is moving at, I don't know, 500-600 miles an hour.
Oh, wow.
Now, I don't know much about physics, and I'm sure somebody out there will point out, well, the body reaches terminal velocity at so many feet per second, and that's it. You can't fall any faster than that. He would have turned into orange goo. There would not have been a body going thump on the floor. It would have been a kersplash, and Wolf would have round up with people and Doctor all over it. And everybody in the room would have gone, what was this? I just got slimed.
Talk about raggedy Doctor. Oh, okay.
Yeah, a huge
Can I explain
problem with
how
the fall.
I
That
think of this?
springboards into a lot of problems that these two episodes have in the realm of, I know it's Doctor Who, and there's a lot of forgiveness, but there's a lot of things that just make no sense why they happen. Go ahead.
How is this for an explanation?
Oh,
each,
no.
each generation, you get tougher. There's no basis for this idea. But the fact that...
If that's the case, them bullets should have ricocheted off the Seventh Doctor.
But that's not what caused them to regenerate.
Oh, that's true.
That's true.
It didn't.
Yeah.
It was
See?
it was,
That's proof to my...
So what you're saying
it
is
was
that
jabbing
it takes more to make you
it
regenerate.
was jabbing a camera through his
It takes
aortic valve.
What you're
It takes
saying
more
is
to
that
regenerate as the more regenerations you
Time
get on.
Lords are like very, very small baby children in that it takes 700 or 800 years for the plates on their skull to go around and
Yes.
protect the back of their head.
And close.
And Tom Baker was only 700 and some odd when he fell, and he landed on the soft spot, and that was it.
There
But
was
as-
a rock there you didn't see.
By the time Matt Smith comes around, that bone has encased all of that, and he
I
can
think there was
bounce
just-
off the floor and be all right.
I think there was just a rock you didn't see that was very
It was a
pointy,
marble floor!
but no juts. Grass, you never know. There
It
could
was
be a
a
jut.
marble floor!
Should we read Alex's
Let's go-
feedback,
let's
and
move
we
on
can
to Alex.
we can talk about some of the other fatal flaws in this story? Because I think Alex pointed a couple out, and
Yeah.
Chrissy will defend those.
Them all, so we're saving Chrissy for last.
Who's reading Alex's?
You are.
Oh, well. It's a good thing I
That would
just
be
pulled
why
it
you
up.
don't know.
I thought we went over this potion.
Keith and I know who's reading it.
You assume I pay attention during the pre-show notes. I was getting... Hi, guys. Getting my feedback in the last minute this week because I really wanted to talk about The End of Time. But first, a side note. Did you know there's a novel featuring the 11th Doctor, Amy and Rory, going head-to-head with the Ice Warriors?
Ooh.
No, we didn't. It's called The Silent Stars Go By, and it's a great read. If you're looking for more Ice Warrior action, it's a good place to look.
The silent stars go by.
Sweet.
There's no red or ice in that title, or
Or
Peladon. Anyway, on to
Or
the main
Seeds of
event.
Death.
Or Seeds of Death. The End of Time. Now, I'm fully aware there's a lot to criticize in these two episodes. The ridiculous suspension of disbelief Davies asks for us when 10 falls from a freaking spaceship
Oh, we did it too soon. I remembered that now that he said that.
and survives with cuts and bruises. I apologize, Alex. I haven't read your email yet. So
I
this is
read
all-
it and I knew it was.
I'll blame Glenn. It's all his fault.
I forgot about it.
Oh, look
Go
at
ahead.
that. The Ice Warriors are even on the cover.
Oh, the magic of the internet. Survives with cuts and bruises. The unsatisfying resolution of the Doctor defeating Rassilon by shooting a MacGuffin. And the plot holes.
Well said, Alex. Well said.
Very well said. And the plot holes, oh, the plot holes. If Donna ever remembers the Doctor, her mind will burn out and she will die. Or, maybe she'll just activate her master-destroying laser brain and then fall asleep. But despite that, I'm absolutely in love with this story. Mainly it's down to the three leads, who were all given equally outstanding performances. Tennant is at the top of his game, showcasing everything we love about his Doctor. There's humor. Worst rescue ever. There's excitement. Alonzi! And there's a touch of the arrogance we saw in Waters of Mars. I could do so much more, but this is what I get, my reward. But the finest moment is just before the four knocks come. You can see every nuance of the Doctor's thoughts on his face, the jubilation he thinks he survived, the cold dread of realization when the knocks hit. John Sim is also spectacular, bringing his casual insanity to the forefront and making an excellent job of showing everyone why he's my favorite portrayal of the Master. His quiet scene with Tennant when he's holding the Doctor hostage is a moment of brilliance, and I sincerely hope we haven't seen the last of his Master. And let's not forget Bernard Cribbins. I think it was a Doctor Who magazine review that said, while Tennant and Sam are busy being dramatic, Cribbins is being real. And I think that's true.
Yeah.
Wilf is the one you really feel for and identify with, and you can't help but cry along with him when the Doctor sacrifices himself to save the old soldier's life. The montage of companions at the end also had me tearing up, especially the visit to Joan Redfern's granddaughter in the bookshop,
Oh, yes. We haven't talked about that.
and his preemptive Happy New Year's to Rose. I was glad we got to see the pre-Doctor Who Rose one last time, the younger version of her, the less confident, less warrior-like version of her character, because that's the Rose I knew and loved. And now, I think congratulations are in order for Keith, who has seen all of New Who.
Yay!
To
date.
To date. I don't know about you guys.
You still haven't seen Death of the Doctor and the wedding
But
of
that's
Sarah Jane.
technically...
Sorry, go ahead.
I don't know about you
Spin-off.
guys, but I certainly think he deserves to rank up from novice for that. Either way, at least you don't have to worry about spoilers anymore. Keep up the great work on the podcast, Alex.
Not only did I see All New Who, I cried at my doctor's a doctor's regeneration that's
regeneration
not
that
my
wasn't his.
doctor.
Yes, I think you deserve an upgrade.
Did you determine what my upgrade was?
I have not discussed it with Glenn, but I have been giving it a lot of thought since you broached the subject, and I agree. I think you are deserving of it. I think Alex is right that he does
I
deserve
will
it.
disclose this. I didn't weep, but tears did come.
Oh, well, now I have to downgrade you to what I was going to do.
I didn't
I'll
weep.
allow a half-step increase now.
Oh, come on.
I think we started him off at newbie, and then he moved into novice. I think now, with the completion of New Who and tearing up at a regeneration of a doctor that wasn't his own, I think he's graduated to rookie.
Rookie!
We doth
Dub.
we doth dub the rookie.
Pass the screwdriver,
Dr. Who.
Knave.
I think this deserves Rivers' screwdriver.
You don't have Tennant's, do you?
It's in Sarah's purse.
Ugh.
Hold
This
on.
would have been so much better with fourth planing.
It has the same sound.
Just knock the chair over there, dude.
Again. Way to go, Keith. That's twice now.
over the first time.
As we scurry to dig for a appropriate.
Going deep into the traveling the Vortex vault to find the screwdriver.
Oh, get out of her
She's going to be
purse.
mad if you go.
Oh, there it is. All right, here we go. All right.
She'll be okay with it for my new rank.
Nope, there it is.
I'm going to do it from over here because you're over there. But we dub the kneel, and on one shoulder, and on the other shoulder, rookie.
Yay!
And all rights and entitlements to such a rank shall hold.
I certainly think we need to. We've talked Wilf. We've talked Tennant. We do need to talk Sims. Sims, again, for me, does a fantastic job of portraying the Master again. I think he's absolutely wonderful at what he's given in this. My problem with Sim is
That's a very diplomatic way of putting
well,
that.
there are moments where Sim shines. He's fantastic in his manic
He brings
insanity.
the complete madness
it's
to it.
there. It's wonderful. The problem is then
The madness
it's
that
written,
he has to-
it's written into the script that he has to do these real weird manic. He's so hungry, so hungry. That could have been done differently without him just totally diving his face into a turkey at what's his name's Forsyth? No, what's his name? What's the
Chamberlain or something.
No, guy that wrote the book.
Naismith.
Naismith.
He throws in the at Naismith's
the names we forget.
Smith's mansion. He throws his
He only invented basketball around these parts.
he throws his face into that turkey, and it's too much. I didn't mind so much the fact that they cut to the woman that's selling the stuff out of the wagon. And
Charged skeleton?
yes, I absolutely
Hey,
love that
Garudum?
because there's this idea or concept that he's drawing life force from somebody, but the whole physically eating things in order to keep up some sort of weird metabolism that's burning off from that was a little much. And then him having to portray what he's doing in those instances, that was just a little over the top. Now again, I think Sims did a great job with what he had to work with there, but that was unnecessary.
I think, while I loved Sims' portrayal of the Master in this story, I think the Master aspect of it is the weakest for me until we get to him investigating the sound of drums.
Agreed.
The problem is
the
it's
whole
not the
force
Master.
lightning.
It's not the
Things
Master.
in
That's
his
what
hand. Yes,
I couldn't put my finger
that
on
is
it,
the
but it's
problem
not.
with it.
It's not
John
the
John
Master.
Sim is brilliant in his performance, and he is brilliant when he takes the Master. Going back to End of Time or Sound of Drums and Last of the Time Lords, when he takes that and just goes manic when he's there.
He's almost the Heath Ledger portrayal of Joker.
Well, it's
the Master.
It's a master.
He really is.
It's a manifestation of the Master we've never seen before, but it still stays true to the form of the Master. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's a different portrayal. It's a different take, but it's still at the core is very master-like.
It's almost a little Eric Roberts.
Yeah, it is a bit.
It is, really. Yeah,
And the fact that it's slightly over the top.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could see John Sim coming downstairs and going, I was dress for the occasion.
Yes, no, absolutely.
Because that's something he would do.
Yes.
But here's the problem. As written, and I guarantee you this, I haven't read The Writer's Tale, but I guarantee that the original script for Last of the Time Lords, the Master was not written that manic. He was written as crazy, he was written as eccentric, and Sim played him as manic, and that works.
Yeah, I was fine with that.
This one, because it's a bad... I can't
Which
even say regeneration.
It's a resurrection. It's a bad resurrection.
I had some problems with the resurrection to begin with.
Yeah, there's
a bunch of potions cause this.
The cult
really?
of Saxon. Yeah, that was it. Let's dive into that real quick because Sean's got more to say on the portrayal. But that was a poor way to bring the Master back. I think there could have been other ways to do it, but it felt very rushed and quickly written.
That's
and
it.
That's the
and
problem
quickly
with it.
written out.
If we had gotten...
Or just dropped.
This is really one of those that I felt could have dealt very easily with another episode. There could have been 3 chunks to this story.
Oh, yeah.
Could have been a utopia.
Build
Exactly.
up to
That's what
the
this one
reveal.
needed. We needed to get something that dealt with this backstory of Naismith and why this guy who wrote a book is all of a sudden important. I mean, what is his deal? Is he in charge? Because they almost initially come across as like he's the prime minister, but not. He's just some rich guy that acquired it. Okay. The cult of why? Where did these people come from, and who was they in charge, and why was
We're
she
big
being
on cults and
yeah,
Quite
RTD's
frankly,
era.
had it
this
been
could have been a big drawn out
Had it-
kind of suspense thing, and it wasn't.
had it been Lucy orchestrating all this, I would have been more forgiving. But
I almost
she's the
like the fact
victim
that-
in this,
Yeah.
and
I almost like the fact that
you certainly
Lucy
like
tries
her
to
character
thwart.
better. Well, yeah, you certainly
Yeah.
like that aspect of it, but the whole cult of Saxon would have made at least a little more sense because who knew the Master better in those years
Yeah.
that he was here, but the person that he was married to.
But this is just something I think that could have been. There could have been a breakout. They could have broken her out of jail, and Lucy Saxon, former blah blah blah, kidnapped, busted out of jail by some unknown assailant, and then you drop it for a little bit, and then you come back to it, and there was so much that could have been done here that we just didn't get the explanation of, and instead having them show up, throw a bunch of stuff in the pot, and did you notice the potion of life or whatever it was called looked very much like the Master in snake form? From
Oh,
Doctor
yeah,
Who, the
it
movie.
sure did.
That had that
Yeah.
same slime consistency and stuff. I thought that
aside
was
from
really
being the
cool.
wrong color, yeah.
Yeah, but so we get this. We pour a bunch of stuff in there,
And then they get the genie in the bottle type thing.
apparently Lucy hasn't ate or drank anything
Yeah,
in a
nothing
year
that's wiped
Yeah.
off the DNA
because
from
nothing
his
has
lips.
wiped off the DNA from her lips. And we throw the napkin in, and poof, the Master springs out of the cauldron, and there he is. What?
Yeah,
That doesn't work.
it's just
It's a poorly done reason.
It's
to
something
bring
I
him back.
can't even rectify. It just doesn't work.
That's
It was
the parts of
terrible
this
way to bring
story
him back.
that fall down. for me.
The fact that the Master would have set something like this up in case he died, I totally buy.
Totally buy
Oh,
that.
absolutely.
Totally okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that he would have entrusted his essence or whatever to this ring, maybe it's like a fob watch or something along those lines, totally buy that. But give us just a little bit more in the don't make me suspend my disbelief that much that early.
Yeah.
Because
Oh, yeah.
now you've put me at that risk of as
That's
a viewer, I'm going to find it harder to stay with you.
That's why I'm off kilter from the beginning of this, and that's why I don't enjoy the first episode at all, because I'm already set off by this.
Yeah.
I'm already put off.
And
by
then the
this.
Master having Force Lightning and Hulk jumping.
We'll talk about that.
Well, that's
too.
just it. Despite the fact that it's a bad resurrection, which is interesting because we've got the Doctor being Christ-like going to his cross, but the Master's the one that winds up coming
Being
back.
the resurrected. Yeah.
But so whatever angle that you want to take with it, that it's a bad burn, and that's why he's crazier and has all these strange powers like Force Lightning and repulsor jets and Skeletor head, and can leap tall buildings in a single bound, and
Hulk jumps.
whatever else you want to throw in there. The way he's written as manic I think detracts from
Right.
what you said.
If you'd have-
Sim's fantastic with what he's given, but they pushed him up against that ceiling where he really didn't have anywhere to go with it other than the way it was directed.
That's well
The way it was
said, because
pushed.
he's written a certain way. Sim adds the manic. But then when you write for the character that Sim then created in turn,
When you write
you're right,
Manic,
it's
you
too-
can't do
yeah,
anything
you
with
set
it.
the
He
bar
do-
too
he,
high.
he doesn't have anywhere to go with it. And
Although I do think it was hilarious seeing him as the Master Race and seeing his reaction.
Well, the
and
reactions that Sim give in
Yeah,
each one of those characters are great.
Yeah.
I had no problem. I had no problem with
See,
I had no
seeing the
problem
Master
with the
in a
betrayal.
dress was also.
I did have a problem with the whole
Other than-
turning the entire.
no, I don't, not even
Let's
that.
shake our
Necessarily.
heads really fast.
Oh, man.
I didn't necessarily have a problem with that, other than it was out of left field.
It's totally in
Since
the
when-
doc. It's totally in the Master's MO, though. That's
That's
totally
totally
something
something
that-
he would have done.
If
But
he could do it, he would do it.
where did this Resurrection Arch? What did they call it?
I don't remember exactly what they did call this thing.
Whatever this gate was,
Yes.
the Immortality Gate.
Immortality Gate. Okay, yeah.
Where did that come from? Oh, we stole it from Torchwood, and I acquired it. We have an Immortality Gate, and they haven't used it.
Yeah, again, very rushed.
Well, they couldn't get it to work properly.
What? We got the crappy glove, but we've got this whole gate down there that we
Speaking
couldn't
of the
figure out.
glove,
Yeah, blew your mind, didn't I? Yeah. we'll get to that.
Okay.
Table that one for right now. So, all right. So we've got all this stuff with Sim, and he's the master. For the love of God, why did they make him a Vandagump? Why is he Shockeye reincarnated with the hunger?
I know. It's,
If he had had red bushy eyebrows and wandered around going,
Yeah.
"Oh, I smell
Yeah.
flesh," it would not have been any more disappointing than it was.
Yep.
Why does crazy equal cannibalism?
yes,
just-
I would agree.
There's no
Again,
reason
if it's
for that.
if it's vampirical where he's absorbing life force,
they didn't even explain it well
I'm
enough.
fine with that. It's just this whole it's this whole cannibalism type thing.
And it's not that cannibalism makes me squeamish or that I support it.
No.
I don't want to go that direction with
It's
it either.
just not in-
it's just
it's
not
not in the
needed.
character.
It's not in the
It's-
character. It's you have taken away the elements of the master now and left us with this big ball of crazy that eats people. And that's not enjoyable. That's you've cheapened the master as a character, and you've really pushed Sim up against the ceiling with making him do all this stuff and setting the turkey down. We get glimpses of the old master back when he fixes the whatever it is and jumps into it and converts everybody in the master race. Which, side note, hated the effect.
Yeah, horrible.
The-
horrible.
Oh.
That was addressed, I think, in the Confidential or something. That was we're spending so much money on gorgeous Gallifrey landscape shots,
Which
and a big
was
planet
beautiful,
in the sky, and
and
all of these
the
a
spaceship flying.
That
Oh,
we've
whew.
run the gamut as far as spending our budget on this, and so what we do is we use tried and true effects that work for other things, and this one fell down because it looked real cheap based on that. But yeah, it's
But the effects that they did spend the money on, so
yeah,
gorgeous.
very,
Best
very
effects
much.
I've ever seen in Who
To date,
to date.
not including Matt Smith, or
Even
total?
including Matt Smith.
Wow, really?
I thought they were that good. Maybe it was because I'm watching it on Blu-ray. I don't know.
And Phil, Dr. Phil did touch on the fact that it was neat to see the different colors in the robes and the symbolisms of hierarchy within
Yeah.
the.
He wished there had been
within-
more of it. It seemed like everybody
absolutely.
was kind
I mean,
of
it was,
the
it
same.
was
Well,
it,
that
that's it doesn't go far enough though. Then
Yeah.
with the branching off into the different divisions, and
Well,
I think
but
that's
maybe
the problem. Yeah,
and again, totally trying to rationalize and put it in a square peg that maybe doesn't fit into. Maybe that's how bad things had gotten. Maybe Rassilon, in his grab for power and everything, had kind of ensured that the ruling class was all going to be people from his house.
Could be,
It's all
yeah.
Slytherin. We're not
That's
going to
well
allow
said.
anybody else into the
that's
the
well
club.
said. Yeah,
I don't
No,
know. Maybe, maybe not.
I would agree with that.
What else did Alex write in here that I wanted to touch on real quick?
we should talk.
I'm going to
we
revisit
should-
something about that Holly brought up as well. So
Go ahead.
We should. Well, before
go ahead.
let's talk about the awesomeness in the goodbye tour of seeing Joan Redford's daughter or
Yeah,
granddaughter.
Yeah, well,
bring
let's
that up.
bring that up. Let's
That
talk
was
about that.
really cool. I did not expect that.
I didn't expect that.
I
either.
saw her and I was like, "Oh, really?" And then she explained what was going on, and I was like,
And that
oh.
was wonderful. That was just enough to give us a little bit of, if you hadn't seen the episode, you weren't completely lost. If you had seen the episode, it was a nice little refresher Why couldn't we have got that with all this other stuff that went on?
Yeah,
See,
no,
that's
absolutely.
that's the thing that in my mind, when in season 6 he's doing his goodbye tour, since he's not spending the time visiting companions, I'm assuming, that's the sort of thing I imagine him doing.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Checking in with family members of somebody else that he had encountered.
Because, and especially seeing the last episode where it's still difficult for the Doctor to reconcile the fact that he has a family.
Yeah.
And then when he comes for dinner, and Dr. Wheeler in the wardrobe at the end, and they're like, dude, we always set a place for you, come on. That I could see him visiting friends or friends of friends, or
Yeah.
you know,
To check in and see how they're doing.
So yeah, I could rationalize that. But this was so wonderful to see her.
It's a perfect way to revisit, because he could not have gone back and
Visited
her
himself. Yeah.
So this is the best opportunity to do it by realizing that this novel, this Journal of Impossible Things, has now been published by the granddaughter, and be able to go somebody who's almost as invested in this story, almost as much as a person he can't visit, and that's the one that's now compiled this into.
and the fact that they got the same actress to come back to play the granddaughter. Which I'm
and
sorry,
of course
that's
she
cool to
plays.
see, but there's some part of me that I have issues with, because how identical is a granddaughter going to be?
Eve Miles was, Gwen Cooper's a descendant of Gwyneth in.
Yeah, I know.
the old days as well.
It's not something uncommon, and I have an issue with that too.
And of course, her name's Verity Newman, and Chrissy put the reference out there on Friday. But you do know that Sidney Newman was a creator of Doctor Who. Sidney Newman, and Verity Lambert was the first producer on the show. So that was a nod to both of them.
That was a very lovely touch.
It was fantastic.
And again, David Tennant's portrayal, when he's standing there and she makes the connection and she realizes who he is. And he says, was she happy? And she says, yes, were you? And he doesn't say anything. He just takes the book and walks off. Mm-hmm. But he gives her just enough of a look to suggest that it still pains him that he, the road not taken. Mm-hmm. The possibility exists of what might have been, and it is that it's so frustrating that there are so many moments of genius acting in this episode.
Well, and even writing,
couched within really poor decision making.
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, it's so frustrating.
Something that Holly had brought up that I want to talk about, because I've got such a spot for Star Wars, is after that when he sat down to when RTD sat down to write this, he must have come just off of a Star Trek marathon, because there are so many Star Wars references.
Yeah.
I mean, if you count through them, the Force lightning from the Master, as dumb as it is just totally Palpatine.
Yeah.
And then you go on to see the at the end of the first part, we see the large Senate-esque chambers. So it's very reminiscent of the Galactic Senate in Attack of the Clones that we first see in there. Well, actually, we see it in Phantom Menace.
Phantom Menace,
Very first thing we see it, or first time we see it. And then to go on and do the battle scene with shooting the missiles down, and it's very reminiscent of A New Hope with the.
I almost wish I would have thrown the "Don't get cocky" line in.
Yeah, come on, you're going to go there. Just go that far.
Go
right?
all the way there.
Go all the way. So we get that moment, and then of course at the end, as Keith kept affectionately calling it all week, instead of the Star Wars cantina, it was the Doctor Who cantina.
Mm-hmm.
So we get the Doctor Who cantina at the end. So yeah, there are certainly shades of Star Wars influence. There have been in the course of the new series, but this was the culmination of, hey, yeah, we have borrowed a lot of this, and we're going to just put it out there and say this is where it's coming from. So I liked the nods to it. Some of them weren't veiled enough, but it was fun.
And that's the thing, though. Having watched enough having watched enough sci-fi, Star Wars, I'm sorry, both really, Star Trek and Star Wars, have influenced sci-fi so much that you can hardly do sci-fi without somehow referencing either one.
Somebody watching and going, oh, that came from Star Wars.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there is no way to avoid it.
Yeah, no.
So the way that
Look
they
at all the films
embraced
that came
it.
out from 1978 until 1989. I mean, they're all heavily
yeah.
influenced by Star Wars. They've only recently started to trail off, and then when the
Prequels
came out, there was a lot of that copying going on again. So.
My favorite is, having worked in the video store for so long, and you both can attest to this, is running through the science fiction section. Back in the days when we had video cassettes, and you would look at the boxes and pick out these low-budget films that had the Millennium Falcon on the cover as a random spaceship.
Yes.
And it was, it was upside down, or it was backwards, or one of them I'd seen they'd taken the distinctive six-paneled engines on or the round holes on the back for the engine planner and just gone panel all the way around this round ship. It's like, who do you think you're fooling with this? Come on! I know where you bought your modeling kit.
Well, should we finish it out with Chrissy? Because she's a lot of things that we nitpicked on Friday as we watched this, and a lot of problems
Chrissy
I
has
had.
a lot
She
to talk
gets
about.
to address those issues.
Here's
so.
the defense of the end of time. Dear Vortex boys, I promised on Friday Night Who that I had theories to share about the end of time. As promised to Keith and Glenn and everyone who goes all grumpy bear on this story, here's what I've got. Be warned, it's long and somewhat involved, but I'm going to defend this story to the bitter end. Warts and all. Only she admits that there are warts. Time Lords have the ability to look in on time from Gallifrey without even having to be there. That's a line from The Sound of Drums, where the Doctor mentions the Time Lords watching events unfold throughout the universe. Evidently, they have the ability, even from the time lock on Gallifrey, that hologram of...
There's the problem, evidently. But go ahead.
That hologram of
You can't
Earth
start a defense with evidently. Go ahead.
probably wasn't a hologram exactly. I think it's more like a portal that the Time Lords used to watch and interact other planets from Gallifrey. That portal could show them any planet they wanted. The Time Lords used that portal to send the drumming signal through time back when the Master was a child at the Academy when he was looking into the untempered schism. Which means they can use that portal to look through the timeline of the universe and change it so they could use the Master to get themselves out of the time lock. The Master didn't have that drumming in his head in any classic Who stories.
No, that's not true.
That's purely a new Who thing.
No, that's not true because this establishes that it has been there all along.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
I
We're going to have to take this in parts because
Yeah,
I think
I'm
going to
going to finish.
this apart.
I'm going to finish this paragraph and then we'll discuss it.
Okay.
But because of the time lock, they can only send out small things like the drumming signal or the white point star. So if the Time Lords could send the signal to the Master back through his timeline, okay. I think the Doctor's mother could use the same thing to locate the Doctor at this vital point in his timeline and send a telepathic message to someone close to the Doctor, which happened to be Wilf. The Doctor's mother wasn't actually in the church at the beginning, nor was she actually on TV or in the Vinavocci's spaceship. Those were her telegraphic messages to Wilf, making him see her. The Doctor's mother probably doesn't want the Time Lords to escape any more than the Doctor does. But there's not a whole lot she can do inside the time lock, but she tries anyway. The Doctor had to get his rebellious streak from somewhere.
Okay.
All right.
Glenn.
Here's the problem
Rebuttal.
with the whole issue here is you're talking about within a certain confined of the time lock. Now, through the entire four series from when they started Who from series 1, we're talking the new series. This time lock idea or element has always been in place because the Doctor had to lock time from Gallifrey's perspective so that they couldn't go back and manipulate any of the events of the war and change the event that the Doctor caused in order to end the time war. So in essence, if they're time locked, they're not able to look outside of that time lock in any way. Now, they probably could have, and there's evidence that they did prior to that time lock because they visit the Doctor quite frequently on Earth. So they are obviously watching him. They recruit him they come to warn him that the Master's on Earth in Terror of the Autons.
Yep.
they come to they actually grab our heroes, Sarah Jane, the Doctor, and Harry, and put them on
From the middle of a transmat.
right from the
beam.
middle of a transmat beam. So they obviously have a lot of ways to do that before the time lock. But the idea of the time lock is so that they cannot manipulate anything beyond the event when it happens, so that they can't change the events of what's going on, which in essence is the problem with this whole story anyway, is that they do. So this episode gives them too many forgivances that they could have used at any time to get out of the time lock. Why are we suddenly at this point figuring out how to do that? I agree that the idea of this story is that the Doctor's quote-unquote mother, which we'll get there as well, is, which, by the way, I don't disbelieve that it was his mother. I believe that it was. And I think there's evidence.
I did some research. and
There's evidence
Russell
that
T.
points to
Davies
he
said,
cast that character as the Doctor's mother.
Yeah.
I agree with Phil, I think it was Dr. Phil, that said he enjoyed the ambiguity of
I
not
agree.
going so far to say who it was, which is fine. But anyway, I believe as well that it's the Doctor's mother. I think those were astral projections or telepathic projections of her. I agree. I totally agree that that's why. She shouldn't be able to do that from behind the time lock is the issue that I have. That shouldn't be something that's allowed to any Time Lord behind this time lock. The only people outside, Time Lord-wise, that are outside of this time lock are the Master and the Doctor. That's the only ones.
That
And
we're
they're-
aware of.
That we're aware of. And there's no...
I got to throw that in there because
you're absolutely right, because it leaves it open to be able to do
I
fun things.
fervently hope that one day we'll bump into somebody else.
So they shouldn't even have this ability in the
Doctor's
first
wife,
place.
we almost do.
So that's the problem I have with them looking and watching the events of Earth. Now, I had made one comment through this whole thing that Keith kind of rectified for me, and I just, for all the times I'd seen it, hadn't thought. Rassilon's telling this story of this setup the whole time. And I keep thinking, how does he know? He's behind this time lock. How does he know that this has happened? And if he's going to die at the end of this, where is he recounting this? And it wasn't until you brought up, well, he's been in the Senate the whole time telling this story to the other Time Lords.
This is the story he's telling the
that
Senate.
I realized, oh, okay, this is where this narration comes. So that totally
It'd
totally
be like
fixed
the
that for me.
emperor talking,
Because
saying this
Roosevelt
is what
had
happened.
fireside chats. This is Rassilon's fireside chat.
Yeah. Another thing that I had an issue was with, I kept thinking, well, because this is some sort of prophecy, that's how he knows that these events are happening. But interjecting prophecy into Time Lord lore anyway is already dangerous, as we'll account from, in other times. It shouldn't exist, and it's a little too metaphysical. But anyway, I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to go even. I'm not even going to go down the soothsayer, which I have a huge problem with it as well. Except for now, I can bring up something that I'm going to segue here real quick, because this just reminded me of something I wanted to talk about when we got to end of time. We saw Braina Morbius and the
Sisterhood of Karn.
Sisterhood, and they originally came from Gallifrey.
Yeah.
Maybe she's a remnant of that. That when I saw Morbius, and I went, oh, this totally opens up something that
Maybe
I can
they-
forgive now in End of Time. Perhaps
If
she's
they can
a
bring
remnant of that.
Rassilon
Yeah,
back from
so-
the dead, why not pull that cult back in?
And or not even that whole cult. Not even that whole cult. Just put up maybe
random
some
member.
sort of remnant of it.
Yeah.
She's still on Gallifrey.
Yes. And they search her out as part of their plan to. We're
She's outside the
grasping
bubble.
at straws now at this point.
Yeah.
To win this war.
And I totally agree with you, because, again, as soon as I saw her and they're relying on the soothsayer, it was like, why? Why do we always got to have some crazy wide-eyed soothsayer with a corn sticking out of her head going, we're going to go and do this?
Yes.
Wait, what? But if she is, in fact, a remnant left over of the Sisterhood of Karn on Gallifrey, not from Karn, but from Gallifrey, and practicing the old ways, the minute Rassilon comes back into power, he's going to go back to the old ways. And I'll bet anything he was instrumental in kicking him out.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm certain. Because he also talks about how we banished the Weeping Angels of Lore in his big speech at the end of long ago. I guess not lore, of long ago.
Yeah. So are we
That was
assuming those are
the Time Lords
statues?
eventually eradicated everybody that didn't agree with them, is what you glean out of that.
They're the Nazis of,
Yeah,
of the
exactly.
universe. That was an interesting problem. Remind me later, we'll talk about the Weeping Angels, because I want to cover that. Back to Chrissy's thing. I know that there's a lot of angst when it comes to the fact that the Time Lords sent this signal back.
I like that fact.
No, I
That
don't,
I'm okay
I
with.
don't have
That
a problem with
tells
that.
me
Is
way back to Classic Who, unlike what Chrissy says. That's why the Master goes evil. I did not have a problem since...
Maybe not even evil, but insane initially.
Well, it's
that
not even
drives
so much
the insanity.
But I can forgive them for getting a signal out of the time lock because it didn't.
It was
the
in
untempered
the-
schism was
yes.
on Gallifrey
Yeah,
when
that
he
works
sees it and goes
for
in.
me.
So
Yes.
it was just within the if you think of the time lock as a bubble, which I'm sure Matt Smith would say it's nothing like a bubble. Forget that. But if you think of it as a bubble and they're stuck within it, they can only influence things within the sphere of this bubble.
And that's
okay.
one of
the
the things
tempered
they
the
have.
untempered schism is in the bubble at that point. So all they have to do is send it back in time from within that bubble.
Yeah.
And they're still okay. So that I was okay
Yes.
with. The warp star getting out, I have huge problems
Yes,
with because
then
now we've
there's
actually gone
you
outside
can't
the
send
bubble.
the warp star through this little because you can't get out of the bubble. Yes, it's the bubble is the and you very well you explained much better than where I was going to go into as far as planting that, and it makes sense that it becomes a device and it works in this. As much as I hate the whole fact that the Master becomes everybody on Earth, even though it's still in the MO of the Master, and if he could do it, he would. It totally becomes logical that it becomes this huge beacon of millions of minds out there now calling for Gallifrey. Sort of lends credence to how they're able to pull through to the other side. That still doesn't work because it still follows my whole bubble theory. But anything time locked in that bubble should not be able to get out as easily or the way that it's portrayed. And that the warp star is the one that is the big no. That there needed to be a different way to get that warp star.
I still have problems
That would have worked for me better.
with her idea that it's not actually a hologram, it's a portal into the planets.
I'm fine with that if you didn't.
How did they get such power?
Well, if you did, I mean,
Omega.
they
Weren't you paying attention?
listen, they travel through time through a vortex. They travel through time and space through a vortex. I can
Yeah.
see this being a vortex portal in a sense.
Sure.
You can see and you can travel through it. I don't have a problem with that, except they're behind the time lock. It doesn't work from that perspective. Now, if RTD had figured out a way to convey to us a more sensible way of how they got out at this point, or got a way, a communicate, if he had so simply fixed with one line of how they were being able now to see outside of this time bubble or transfer things outside. If he could have, I don't know what the answer is. I don't know what the fix is. But if he could have convinced me in the context of the story that they had figured a way to do it, then I would have been okay with the device.
This is one of those
doing it.
instances where
But
we
my
needed
biggest
just a
problem
little
is
more science.
Exactly.
It even
go
goes
along with
further
it
to that,
does
in
not
the fact
work.
that he doesn't even give evidence to the fact that it's more than a hologram, other than the fact that they throws it at him. He throws the diamond at it.
Again, that's nitpicking.
Yeah, I'm not nitpicking that either,
Yes, he
because
throws it at the hologram. and all
I
of a sudden it
almost
appears
have more
over
problems
Earth.
with
It's
that
like,
because they're having they're doing what they can to get out of the time bubble. Okay, it's a time lock. They're stuck. But if they weren't in the time lock, how would that still work?
That's the problem.
Again,
that is the core issue there.
Again,
Is
I
the
think
fact
that's for the same reason that they can sit and watch what the Doctor's doing. They can pop in to wherever he's at.
See,
I mean, he travels through.
Well, yeah, no,
TARDIS,
I just but from within the time bubble.
Yes, from within the time bubble, it doesn't
locker,
work.
That's
That's
the
my problem as well.
Because if this worked, why couldn't you go put on a spacesuit and run and leap at the portal and wind up in
Miniaturize
orbit?
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Wind up in orbit over Earth. There's no rhyme or reason
The time
to why.
lock keeps that from happening, and there's no rational way of how we've got a hole in the time lock now.
Yeah, I mean
That's the problem I have with all that. And we
the-
argued
the-
about.
the size. I don't think matters. Of the,
And I
of the
and I
object.
couldn't
It's the fact
convey,
that it got out
and I
altogether.
was trying not to be argumentative on the Twitter the other night, but she had brought up that point of, well, they were able to. But my point was the only way that they knew where the Master was that worked for me was the signal that they had implanted while he was in the time bubble
Yeah.
in his head. That makes sense, but there's no way to. They can't track any Time Lord outside of that time bubble once that event happened and that time lock was put on there.
Which
That just can't happen. So.
I still love the fact that, okay, we learn that the Doctor looked into the untempered schism, saw the drums. That's what's caused all the madness
master.
through.
The
Yeah,
master. He's a doctor.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But
The master.
You're a master, yeah.
That's
wanna
what
make sure I'm
caused
following.
all the madness throughout since we've been introduced.
Yes.
And then the fact that the Time Lords put this there.
Yes.
Oh, that was
that
so
just makes
brilliant.
him so much more sinister. That's just
Yeah.
absolutely love that. And Chrissy said that this has only happened since new series. No, I don't think that's true at all.
I
This
don't
has happened
think so.
since he was a young boy.
Yeah.
and it has been going on since the classic.
He just hasn't expressed it.
And it's never been addressed because
has-
it's obviously been retroactively
Yeah.
put in the
I
time.
also
But
believe
even
it's
in-
possible that maybe as a child, his mind wasn't necessarily comprehending what he was hearing.
Absolutely.
And maybe he was able to kind of background push it. And as we got closer to this date with Destiny, the drumming became louder.
how much-
and
Ooh, that's
more,
oh, I like that.
you know,
Let's look at it
insane.
from this sense too. If we go back, and maybe we'll do this when we do another Master archive. If you go back and you look at the progression of the Master, he becomes more and more insane as the character progresses along. So it works retroactively in that way that maybe we're progressing up to a more, obviously a more knowledgeable, more dynamic impulse that is continuing to happen throughout his life. And even, I mean, the guy's skirted death several times and stolen bodies. And I mean, so this guy's had a pretty ragged
Yeah.
physiological life. So, I mean, that could even be playing into it more
You
as
know,
well.
and
So
it almost seems to me that
that's why you can forgive Eric Roberts playing it the way he did in the more
yeah.
flamboyant, more almost maniacal.
it
way.
almost seems to me that it's not until later incarnations of the Doctor that he's willing to try to help the Master more and find out why he's gone so mad. Like, it's almost like previous incarnations is like, yeah, well, I'll team up with you. You're crazy. I don't know why you're crazy. I don't care. I'm going to team up with you so I can get out of this. And it's not until later that he starts almost caring more.
Part of the caring.
Sure, it started with Shaka Doctor.
Well, part of the caring aspect, though, also lends from the fact that the Doctor believes that he is the only Time Lord, and so
Well,
when there's another one
yeah.
there, you're grasping.
Yeah,
So
that's true.
Yeah.
So
The,
I think that's how it fits into past Master incarnations and the drumming still being there.
The other thing I want to touch on in regards to the music and the drum beat, and then I think we can leave this be, is this for me is one of the moments of sheer genius, one of the nuggets, because I've expressed before over the fact that Russell T Davies is really the one that solidified the Vortex. The Vortex has opened every episode of Doctor Who from the dawn of time, and he's the one that really took it and said, this is actually what it looks like when the TARDIS is traveling through time and space. It looks like the Vortex. And I went, oh, cool, that's a way to open, because it's not just the opening credit sequence now. It's like canon. It's official.
This is how we're traveling to where we're going.
So now we work in the sound of the drums and the bump, 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 and it's a heartbeat. And it's like, oh, yeah, cool. But it's really not until this episode that all of a sudden it's like,
The heartbeat of the Time
the
Lord?
heartbeat of a Time Lord, and that signal was sent through the Vortex. You've just canonized the theme song. Bump, 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 bump. That's part of this. Oh, that's really cool. And then Moffat takes it one step further when we get to Wedding of River Song, the oldest question in the universe that cannot be asked, Doctor Who. The frickin' title is part of this universe? Fanboy squee. I couldn't be more pleased with that, really. That to me was the pinnacle of self-referencing in-jokes that went too far, and I don't care. I love it. I think that is so cool.
I like to think that if Moffat is going to do the fall of the 11th, when the final question is asked, Doctor Who, on the 50th anniversary, I'm going to think of all of Doctor Who up to this point is a culmination of including all of these things, that absolutely everything leads up to this moment. That's
It's
how
felt
I'm gonna
that
view
way.
it.
The way they've been sprinkling these little
with
nuggets
Russell T
through there.
Davies and this, yeah.
Glenn doesn't see it. He thinks we're completely nuts.
I know. I totally see where you're coming from. I can't get as excited and buy into that as much. But
Well, it's just it
I think
makes it more than an opening sequence. It makes it like all of a sudden the answers have been right in front of you this whole time and you didn't see it.
It's happy accidents. It's not calculated.
No, I think it's I think it's totally calculated.
It's
But
not.
I think
Let's go on because we're
let's
going to
move
run
on,
out of
Chrissy.
time here.
Also-
the end of our time is coming up. So
If the Time Lords could bring the Master back to get them out of the time lock, I'm certain they could bring Rassilon back to help them in the Time War. So that makes perfect sense. They might even have brought back Omega. It is a time war, after all.
and I'm totally I'm in her camp on that.
I
think
agree.
that,
I
yeah,
agree. Yeah.
that's the way, and that totally is Rassilon. And we talked about how it could have been any Time Lord that Lord President, but
The
I
only
totally
thing I
accept
think
it.
that leads-
I actually at one time had thought too, if we ever got a Time War story or a truncated version of it, that Omega would be in there as well, because I think that was it.
I'm going to disagree. That's the one part of this that I don't agree with. I agree that that they went back and Rassilon did all this stuff. The reason that Omega's not there is because I don't believe his getting left behind in the antimatter universe by accident was
that's
by
right.
accident.
It was
I
calculated.
think
No, you're
Rassilon
right.
did it
You're
to
right.
take over
You're
and
right. I
consolidate
would
his
agree.
power, especially now that we've
And
seen
it
that
would
he's
make
not
sense.
such a nice
it would
guy.
make sense for
Oh,
Rassilon
yeah, that-
not to
yeah.
put his
Yeah, so
enemy close to him.
He's not
Yeah,
going to bring
absolutely.
Omega back and say, yeah.
Although
we
they
know
were
that.
in,
We
they were
know-
in, quite,
we
they
need
were
all
in
the-
such desperation at this point. A lot of these things hint. We're going to talk about more of this in the Time War when we talk about the Time War. But a lot of these hint to the desperation of the Time Lords in this epic event that happened in their history.
Remind me off mic later. I want to talk to you guys about the Omega Directive that I just became aware of. That apparently is a thread that people have been picking up on running through New Who.
Okay. Ooh.
Go ahead.
Okay, continuing on. I know most of this is just me coming up with theories and retconning and taking a lot for granted, but it's an explanation that I can accept, and it doesn't cause me too much heartburn.
I was popping antacids on Friday.
Plus, I can enjoy this story more than most people seem to. Well, maybe enjoy isn't the word exactly, but I get the emotion that they were going for.
And I think we all do, Chrissy, in that sense.
Yeah,
They
absolutely.
still
Absolutely.
get the. I think we all end up with the equal emotion from this two-part.
Oh, yeah. I'm not saying this story is without its problems. The fact that I have to piece all these background details together speaks to how much is left open to interpretation. In the Cult of Saxon scene, it's about the weirdest thing I've seen in any Doctor Who story. But I can even forgive that because the Master is a raving loony, and it would make sense that any followers he had would have been raving loonies too.
Chrissy,
Still doesn't make it any less weird, though.
you just fixed that one for me. I'm perfectly fine based on that statement. That's a well said point. I'm
That
going to
really
go
is.
with that. I'm going to leave. I never could justify or fix that in my head, and that's the best explanation I've heard for that scene ever. So
There's a certain,
I'm going with that.
There's a certain mental level that has to be reached in order to be a cult member.
I'm totally going with that.
Okay. Moving on.
I like it. I'll take that one, Chrissy. I will take that one.
But there is a lot to love about this story, not the least of which is David Tennant's performance. This is his last go as a Doctor, and he's giving it all he's got, especially in the scene right before he goes into that radiation booth to save Wilf. Who in the world designed something to control radiation where someone has to unlock the door and climb in before you can climb out?
That was a frequent tweet from her all my Friday.
Three
Worst
times
design
she tweeted,
ever.
Yes. three times she tweeted about the poor design of
It is a bad design.
It is.
Ten's slow anger at having survived the Master and the Time Lords only to have to die saving his companion is heartbreaking and wonderful all at the same time. The farewell tour is a great tribute to the entire RTD era, including the Journal of Impossible Things, great nod to human nature. My favorite part of Ten's goodbye is most definitely Donna's wedding, and how the Doctor goes back in time, borrows some money from Donna's late father, and uses the money to buy a winning lottery ticket for Donna and Sean Temple.
And that is the quintessential. We've gone through the gut punch of Wilf and the triumph of the Doctor actually saving him, and the extended Return of the King farewell sequence.
I'm sorry, this isn't as long as that one, but go ahead.
That's true.
And then we kind of come back to the end. Let's wrap up Donna and Wilf and that whole story. And I was sitting here thinking to myself, all the people the doctors bought lottery tickets for, how come Donna doesn't get one? This is just
She
wrong.
deserves one.
She deserves one. And I'd completely forgotten that he comes back with this thing, and he tells the story of her father, and just back to being crushed all over
I
again.
did too, and
Just
I teared up. And that was
emotionally
such a nice
wrought.
moment.
Oh, it was.
Gosh.
I thought of this later, but as far as the goodbye tour goes, I almost think they should have started with Jack instead of Martha. Because Jack brought so much humor to the goodbye tour that if he would have started if they would have started with Jack, gone Martha, gone
That's too
Donna, Rose,
that's
I would have
too
cried.
intense. That's too intense, and I think that was. I think placing Jack where it was like, it was almost like we're not going to.
We're going to rip your heart out, but we're going to do it slowly.
Well, not even slowly, but we're not. We're going to give you a chance to breathe in this. Where this is going to be a really, really emotional span of time here, and we're going to cut you a break in the middle of this. We're not going to drag you from high peak to low point emotion wise. That would have been quite the slope of emotion, and I think that was calculated in the sense that we're going to dip down, we're going to come up a little bit, and give you a break, and then we're going to come back down. I think that was. I thought that the pacing of that was fantastic.
It may have been written that way, and maybe the editor said you can't do this to people.
Just thinking from a
would've-
storytelling perspective, it makes sense not to go there. That's just
I would
way
have
too
out
much.
weeped.
I know
if
that's
it
what,
had
and
gone
they
that
don't want you to do that though. They don't want you. It's still Doctor Who. They want you to have your moments
And
of
technically a
sadness
New
and
Year's
say
special,
goodbyes.
so.
Yeah, they don't. They don't. No, that would have been way too much. Yeah, way too much. And that's why the ending is the way the ending is. And Chrissy's going to talk about that here in a minute.
And then there's the regeneration. The first time I saw this, I was positively sobbing by the time the Doctor steps into the TARDIS. But then Matt Smith shows up and has about 30 seconds to show that he is the Doctor and he does a fantastic job. So much so that by the time the credits rolled, I was actually laughing and looking forward to the 11th hour. Before we continue with Chrissy's email, you tweeted on Friday that when you saw Matt Smith, that was the first time you got chills.
I did. That was
Elaborate.
That was okay. This is the first time I saw this, and we went through this entire emotional moment of the farewell tour and David Tennant looking at the camera saying, "I'm not ready to go," sort of doing the breaking the fourth wall, as Phil had said, Odd Duck Phil had said. And I was very forgiving of that, even though it seemed a little out of place and it was just made me a little squeamish. But I was fine with all that, and then it was just we'd gone through this whole thing, and then there was the regeneration, and that was the first point in that show for the longest span that I could remember that I was reassured that Doctor Who isn't going anywhere, and you're in for a very exciting new Doctor, and I loved that. Now, having seen what Matt Smith has done and experienced Matt Smith, and I've already told you both that I have put Matt Smith on, because Tennant was always my favorite of the new series.
Yeah.
I have now put Matt Smith on par, if not more so, than David Tennant, now that I've enjoyed as much of Matt Smith that I have. So this time, getting to revisit my prior favorite Doctor of the new series and seeing my now new favorite Doctor come on screen, that was the first time that Matt Smith actually gave me chills, because I thought, you know what? The chills from it was, this is what he promised me. This is what Matt Smith promised me as the Doctor. Getting all chilled up now. This is what Matt Smith promised me. He said, this is the Doctor I'm going to be, and this is the fun we're going to have, and this is how I'm going to play this, and you're going to love me. And he came through with that promise. He delivered that promise all the way to the very last episode we've seen him in. So this time I got chills, because it was the realization that Matt Smith did not let me down from that point. He was fantastic.
And he didn't change his portrayal of the Doctor at all.
It was it was a realization of a promise fulfilled, because this is probably the first time I've seen, since I've seen so much of Matt Smith, this is the first time I've seen
And what
knowing that the promise I got then was fulfilled was just really numbing, and it just gave me chills and got me excited again. So.
One of the things I loved about the regeneration, probably my favorite part aside from the Geronimo, is, and I'm still not a ginger, which calls back to all New Who.
Well,
both
Tennant's regeneration, when he says, he makes
the scene that was cut out. That
Yes,
they didn't,
absolutely.
They didn't go into.
Didn't they even do that in Eggleston? Like when
Because we never saw Eccleston's regeneration.
No, but
didn't
he looks
say
in the mirror and he does say something.
About
But I
not
can't.
being
Does
a
he say
ginger.
ginger
I
at
don't
that
think
point
he
too?
did.
I thought he
I
did.
don't think he did either.
I thought it was just the Tennant regeneration. Oh, I'm not ginger.
And it's not cut out. It's in the
It's in the Children of Time.
Children of Need
Children of
special.
Time.
Yeah.
Children of Need special.
Yes.
The Children of Time.
That's
Well,
Stavros.
I think
Finish
Chrissy's
her-
going to
finish
sum
her-
this up
finish-
real
finish
nicely,
her
and then I think we're going to end here pretty quick. 'Cause we've gone a little long this week,
one
so.
note.
No, that's
that-
quite all right.
Do you want to do it now, or do you want to wait till Chrissy? do it
No,
after Chrissy?
let Chrissy sum it up, because
Let's
I think
Chrissy
we're
sum
all
it
going to
up.
give our
Okay.
I think we're all going to give one parting sum. But
To sum up the end of time, the 10th Doctor goes out with a bang, and RTD throws in the kitchen sink. Fans everywhere are reduced to tears, and Kleenex stock stays high, while the cynics are given much to be pedantic about, as they will do, of course. And now I leave it to you three to poke holes in my carefully thought out conclusions and theories.
we poked the holes as we went.
Chrissy, we did it a little different.
Actually,
this
we
week.
really only kind of deflated the first part of
the
this. The
one
rest
part.
of it, I think we mostly agreed with.
Keith, you want to sum up?
It's such an emotional end to 10 that I never thought I would have. And it makes me terrified of 11s.
That makes sense. That totally makes sense, especially coming from your perspective.
Oh, man. I mean, I'm tearing up again. Because I enjoyed 10 so much as a doctor. He very close to 11 for me. I mean, it's 11, 10, 3. I mean, that is my list.
I love that Pertwee's third.
I mean, and
I don't agree, but I totally
I can
love
totally
that
see-
Pertwee's
I can
third.
totally see it. The more Pertwee we watch, the more I realize how much I enjoy him.
he's also the first classic who I've seen.
Wait till I fall apart when we watch Logopolis.
As I told Chrissy, I plan on poking holes in that story the way that we poked holes in this one. So.
Oh, I've got issues with that, yeah. But it's still that moment that
Yeah.
I'm going to tear me up.
Yeah.
I will be so inconsolable. And now I know how 10 Doctor fan feels. If 10's your doctor, I completely understand.
I thought 10 was a mediocre doctor. You didn't understand how you could be anybody's favorite.
That goes back to my first introduction of 10.
That was back in the
That was before I got to know 10 and began to love 10.
Now
1 year.
Now
to
you
a
know
new-
how 10
Now
can be
I know.
somebody's doctor.
I
and this-
almost 1 year later, I will say, I now know how 10 can be anybody's doctor.
And this is why you were graduated to rookie.
Yes.
I feel like we should promote him one more time. He's tearing up again.
He is. He's sitting here. He's got a little red eye going on. He's not looking so good.
I think you're going to end this better than I will, so I'm just going to sum up my...
Okay.
As much as I pick this apart and I have issues with this, I wouldn't have gone back and done this any differently. I mean...
Oh, I
Once,
would've.
well, no. That's just it. Once I got done with it, and I respect it for what it is. I respect it for what Russell T Davies tried to do. There are the in betweens could have been better. The in betweens should have been better, especially coming from Russell T Davies. But we got so many of the moments, and my issue with it's not even an issue. My thing with these two parters is, I absolutely dread going through the first episode because there's so many problems with it and the things I don't like about it.
But once we get in that ship, once we escape and we get on the ship and we have the moment with Wilf on the ship, from that point, actually, it's when the Tennant wakes the ship back up, and you know that Tennant had a plan, that he's had a plan all along. It's so classic Doctor. It's so classic David Tennant Doctor. From the point where he wakes the ship up all the way to the end is such a fun romp. That's when I get excited and I love this story, despite the fact that he falls 100+ feet. This is where I love this story, and I get so excited, and I get so giddy, and the critic goes, the critic gets kicked out the door, and the fanboy in me just enjoys the ride all the way to the end. And that's where I glean from this two-parter, is that last third of the final act is so wonderful and so fun, and there's so much I get out of it that actually outweighs everything that I don't like about these episodes. And so that becomes that's what I walk away from this episode and remember is from that point to the end.
Absolutely.
And that's what I love about this. And I will continue to rate this high because of it being 10 and being such a special Doctor to me, and this is his swan song, and I can't fault it from that point on. So
the end of time as a two-parter, as an episode, we've spent a lot of time, and it's almost funny because I think we've done a little bit of a reversal from what I anticipated. I really kind of figured the three of us would come in and sit down tonight and just shred this thing to pieces, and I don't think we have.
There's too much to love.
That is the key.
That's what it was.
As much as is wrong with this, and let's be honest, there's a lot. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love the humor. I love the light moments in this, but it almost borders on slapstick. There are so many of them in the first part
worst
that bounce from
escape or worst rescue ever is so slapstick.
but that one works because of the delivery and who's delivering it.
That one works because of the delivery and who's delivering it, and it would have been so much infinitely better had we not gotten a long string of slapstick jokes in part one.
Yes, no, I would agree.
Culminating with Master Race, which
agree with that.
I will pick apart because it's a bad pun. I don't mind the humor, but like some of them are action set pieces where we kind of bounce from one action piece to the next to the next. This one we really bounce from one humorous moment to the next, which seems really weird considering that it's a fairly dark story. Mm-hmm. And I
think you bounce to those because if you don't cling to those humorous pieces, you get so wrapped up in the darkness of it that you get lost.
Well, and maybe
those humor pieces are in there in order to keep you from being so lost and depressed, and you're going to kill yourself.
Normally, I would agree with that, but it comes across in the same way as
the same. That goes to my argument of how that last farewell is.
Yeah, why that's done that way.
That's true.
You just sold my argument.
That's true, but I'm just saying it would have made me wet more if it was edited differently.
I knew where you were coming from.
It feels the same way when you're watching a movie, and I'll pick on Batman Forever for a moment. the scene in Batman Forever where the Two-Face mobiles come out and they're chasing the Batmobile and things are exploding and the Batmobile winds up firing the grapple and climbing up the wall. That scene serves absolutely no purpose in the film. There's no context for it. It's an action scene that's dropped right in the middle of this movie because somebody at Warner Brothers watching the dailies went, we haven't blown anything up in about 20 minutes. We need an action scene here to break the monotony of this film up. And then you get another dramatic scene after that. That's almost what this one feels like with the humor, is that we're going along and then there's a joke, and then we go along and there's a joke, and we go along and there's a joke. The first episode especially. And it kind of has that almost we're putting them in just for the sake of putting them in.
Yeah.
Having said that, and as many things as are wrong with it, I totally agree with Glenn that once we get to the ship, and I mean, we didn't even talk about the cactus people.
I don't think we needed to, though. I mean, it was
anthropomorphic plants now.
They're who they are. They're who they are.
But they were so much fun.
They were fun.
And they called back to Voyage of the Damned,
mm-hmm.
which I thought was a nice touch.
But I wish we'd gotten, that was another example of why couldn't we've got just a little bit more story aspect of tied in with this infinity or immortality gate thing that they were here to salvage and fix.
Speaking of immortality, you didn't go back to the glove.
I didn't go back to the glove. These bad moments are tempered by so many good nuggets and so many wonderful things. Timothy Dalton's, all the performances we've talked about. The genius one for me is at the end when we've established Wolf's in the box. We can't get him out of the box. Anything will set it off. And the doctor pulls out what? Mr. Super Duper.
Fix it all.
Everything fix it. The ultimate Swiss Army knife. And he looks at it and goes, this would even set it off. And I was like, praise Russell T. Davies for putting that in there because it's not going to fix this.
It was an acknowledgement, too, to the fact that we've overused.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, the fanboy in me was screaming, no, let him out of the box, let him out of the box. But the scientist and the critic in me was going, thank you for putting that moment in there because it was such a nice not using it as a crutch moment, which we hadn't really seen the Sonic all episode. And that was just
aside from reactivating
activating the ship, and doing it standard. I'm going to activate everything in the universe thing. But the gadgetry is great. We want to talk about the glove briefly because I kind of blew Keith's mind when I tweeted out on Friday night. Did anybody happen to notice that Rassilon has the companion glove to Torchwood's Resurrection glove?
The risen mitten.
The risen mitten and
he and I talked to this outside your apartment when we reviewed Torchwood. Season
really?
1. Yeah, we went outside and he and I talked about that. Yeah, so this wasn't a revelation.
It wasn't a revelation to him, but it was at the time.
At the time, I went, oh.
For me, it went boom.
So I thought, I'll throw this out there. Hit. And Keith was following along, and he looked down and read my tweet, and his eyes got this big around, and he spun around and looked at me and was like, oh. And I was like, yeah, it's the same design, the gauntlet.
I never thought of that the first time watching it.
I didn't either. I'd seen it several times until he said it.
So now it brings up this whole, all right, so how did the glove fall from Gallifrey and wind up on Earth? And I really want to know that story, and how cool would that be?
And Sean will be writing that.
The
short story on travelingthevortex.com.
And what other abilities would it have in the hands of a Time Lord?
Yeah. Because
obviously the opposite doesn't. Yeah.
But again, the sum of the parts, I think, maybe a little greater than the parts themselves. Mm-hmm. And I think especially because it's the swan song, because it's the end of so many levels and the metaphors and the destruction of the target, all of that stuff, I think maybe we kind of come down on the side of nostalgia. I think this is one of those that as fans, as Who fans, despite the plethora of things that are wrong with it, we're like Chrissy. We're kind of willing to defend it a little bit and give it that extra mile, even though there's so much that they asked from us. There's so much. We gave them an inch and they took a mile. There's so much suspension of disbelief that it becomes really hard to swallow. But all of that is forgiven when you get to the end and David Tennant says, I don't want to go, and we don't want him to. And that's kind of where I come down on this one.
Agreed.
And I'm exhausted talking about it. I'm as exhausted talking about it as I was watching.
I don't know about you guys, but not many other shows have made me cry. I can think of only two. And the fact that Doctor Who has made me cry twice is phenomenal. And that's not even in my Doctor's run.
All right, some housekeeping because Sean's going to quickly talk about some changes that he's made, and we're going to get out of here because we're just about to. We're turned over into 3 hours now. So
I'm going to blame
apologies. Apologies. Phil did have a long email, but we talked, we ran it. Of course, we did this right by interweaving, I think, a lot of the feedback into our discussion,
I think
and
it
worked.
More topics.
Yeah, it worked out.
And as always, thank you everybody for sending that feedback in.
And thanks for being able to review along with us this week. So,
well, this week for Friday Night Who, we're going to do our first Christopher Eccleston.
Yay!
Now, we've obviously reviewed all of Eccleston's stories, but this will be the first time watching him on Friday Night Who as a group, and we're going to do Dalek.
Woot!
And I know everybody's tired of Daleks, but we're going to do Dalek in preparation for...
Speak for yourself. I'm not tired of Daleks.
More Cybermen!
We're getting there. We're going to do this in preparation for next week's topic, which is the Time War. We are going to delve into this bad boy, and we're going to do it hardcore, and we're going to examine all of these elements that make the Time War what it is, and hopefully we'll have some interesting things to say on that, and we won't bore you. And Glenn has tasked Keith and I with some homework, so if you'd like homework of your own, IDW's comic book The Forgotten is one that we will be discussing in conjunction with this, and apparently
A
I haven't
piece
read it
of
yet.
it, but you really have to read the entire series. I mean,
Well,
because
it's a multi-doctor story,
it
which I'm
really
all
is.
for anyway.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
But apparently there's a piece of it that's very important to our discussion.
Yeah.
So we're going to go with that. And then coming up in future dates...
It'll make
on,
you kind of giddy when you read it.
Coming up in the future on Friday Night Who, we're going to jump into Peter Davidson's era, so I know Chris, you'll be happy, which after poking all the holes in her story of the defensive end of
She
time...
may
we're
not
gonna
come back.
Well, I feel like we're throwing her a bone now. We're going to do the Black Guardian trilogy. So we'll do that coming up. So, a lot of fun
Not
things
to be
coming.
confused with Black Orchid.
And of course,
Is Black Orchid part of the
Galley
Black
is
Guardian?
looming huge on the horizon. So we're going to get to that as well. But that's it.
All right. Well, I'm going to wrap this up now, guys, because we got to get out of here. Anyway, so that's it for us this week. Until next week, I'm Glenn.
I'm Sean.
I'm Keith.
Cheers.
Good night, everyone.
Be seeing you.
You have been listening to Traveling the Vortex. Doctor Who and all of its associated programs are owned and trademarked by the BBC. No infringement is intended or implied.